Hello friends, welcome to Universe of Naruto X. If you love Naruto what if stories and anime explanations, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Now let's begin today's story. Hello guys, this is your friend Naruto Audio Fanfics and we are back with a new fanfic which is what if Naruto was reborn by a forbidden deal and Hinata Ino and Temari became his queens part 1 and if you enjoyed this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this and now let's start the fanfic. Naruto ran as fast as his feet would take him towards the sounds of bombs exploding. The cries of ninja in pain or worse the cries of them dying. All for the sake of me. They are dying and getting hurt because of me. He thought bitterly to himself. He landed stiffly on the ground. Pausing from the long run he had just had. He wasn't tired. His stamina assured that. But he scanned all that lay before him. Moa had finally started the long-awaited battle. He and the Akatsuki, the ones both living and the ones brought back to life simply for this moment versus what arms they could muster between the 5 ninja nations. Naruto shook his head. He should have stayed on the secluded island with Killer Bee and Yamato and the others. But he being the Uzumaki he was thought if it was his freedom ninja we're fighting and dying for, shouldn't he at least be there to fight with them? Instead of sitting and hiding on an island who knows where, learning about his past. Sure, he had gotten the 9 tails under control, but what good would that do if it meant others died? While he simply sat and meditated, he shoved off with a push of chakra. He had some unfinished business to take care of. Business that went by the name of Uchiha Sasaki. Naruto leapt onto a branch of one of the few remaining trees. Scanning once more, over a third of the army was being held under a strong genjutsu created by Uchiha Itachi. Next was a team-up of power between Dara throwing his bombs endlessly and Sasori with his hundreds of puppets. Already he could tell that several squads of ninja were down due to the poison. He studied the medic ninja as they worked endlessly trying to make enough antivenom to go around. Nar gritted his teeth. War was terrible and he hated it with every last fiber of his being, but he had to press on. Ignoring the battle and slipping behind the enemy lines, he traveled some ways until he finally found the one he was looking for. The ebony-haired teenager stood overlooking the battle from an outcrop of rocks. Naruto slowed and walked forward slowly, black eyes piercing him as he did. He stopped and stood defiantly, looking back up into those dark eyes. Sasaki stood urbane upon his mock throne of rock. He spoke casually, his eyes rolling across Naruto as his hand rested on the hilt of his sword. So ready to die. Hen Nar. Sasaki said, sneering at him. Nar shook his head. It was unreal what Sasaki had become. How far he was lost. But Nar smirked. I have learned a lot more since the last time we met Sasaki, he said calmly. Sasaki stood complacent. He blinked, which he did in a pompous manner as well, if that was even possible. Naruto shook his head. He was so arrogant it was unnatural. But he spoke. Somewhere inside that young man was the sass he knew. I know what it's like for you. I really do. But that doesn't mean you have to be this way, Nar said, hoping his words appealed to something inside Sasaki. Nar continued, his 3 years of longing stretched into his next words. Come back to Konoha, please. Just come back. Sasaki waited. Then he jumped down with a grunt to measure Nar with a steely glance. What does that have to do with anything? Nar leveled him with his own glance as well, frustrated. It means that neither of us have to kill the other because you don't have to be like this. Anger flashed in Sasaki's eyes. Be like what? He spat back. Guilty. Nar simply stated, taking Sasaki back. What? He asked. Naruto shifted his foot in the dirt. You know what I said. Guilty. You feel guilty. Sasaki studied him with a slight crease to his forehead as if not understanding. Well, finally he is stooped by something. Naruto thought to himself. After you heard the truth, you wish you could take it all back. You never wanted to kill Itachi. You only did it because that's what everyone expected you to do. He said, expanding on his former statement. Sasaki stared at Naruto. He finally spoke up. His voice edged. How could you possibly? Naruto put up a hand silencing him. That's right. He silenced Sasaki. Don't even start, Sasaki. There are other people on this earth who have suffered far worse than you. Nar said with a voice so quiet, Sasaki had to strain to hear it. But with words so powerful they sent a chill down his spine. Sasaki said nothing. He thought to himself, Nar is right in his random way. Life as a Jingaru had to have been hard to be considered a demon all your life. Sasaki had to admit it would take a strong man and a strong will to face up to that kind of pressure day in and day out, which is also probably why he's so stubborn and annoying. He added dryly to himself. There was a silence for a moment as each stared at the other. The sounds of the distant battle still rang on, but neither seemed to notice. Sasaki finally sighed. Why are you doing this, Nar? Naruto shook his head. You still don't get it because for the thousandth time, Sasaki, you're my friend, and I made a promise to Sakura. You know me, I never go back on my word. Sasaki chuckled. He had always thought long after he killed Itachi about what he was going to do. True, he felt guilty about killing Itachi. But if there was one thing he knew he had to do still, even today, it would be to get revenge on that village. Konoha, the place he once called home. The thing that had all but destroyed the Uchiha clan. That Arsed village forced his brother to carry the burden of killing his clan. Then Itachi had forced his own brother, forced him to kill his own brother, his last relation. Did no one understand that? Did no one see the wrongness in that? Now Nar was all but forcing him to return to that Kami-forsaken village in the name of friendship. There was no way unless he paused as the devilish wheels in his head kept turning. Something revealed itself. Something dark and deadly is killing one's own brother as he figured out a way to get all this to work. True, he was bored with the Akatsuki and wouldn't mind leaving. But if he went back to the village, Naruto would be there. And let's face it, he only had so much of his vision left. Although he didn't want to admit it, Nar was stronger than him. However, he had one thing he could do that Nar couldn't. He could kill the other. Nar couldn't kill him. He was too pure, too innocent. Something Sasaki envied. But despite that, he couldn't help smiling at the thought of what Naruto's face would look like. How would it contort when he knew Sasaki had betrayed him? Yet, under all this, Sasaki still felt some link to Nar. They were rivals and friends. There was something about their destinies that were bound to each other. He held that respect to Nar even to this moment, but like all bonds before, he would sever them in time. Suddenly, the lights went on as he thought even harder. Danzo was the current Hokage. If he did return, Danzo would greedily accept him into his clutches. The old man was blinded and a fool. But he did have the same motive as Sasaki. He and Danzo could plot together for a bit then, but he would just kill Danzo when he outran his usefulness. But one thing kept getting in the way. Nar. If he returned with Nar, Nar would get in the way unless he killed him now. Wait, if I did kill Nar and blamed it on Moa, this would actually work. Everyone would be so upset and confused. They would have to believe him. No one else is here. No one would know the truth. He thought to himself already. He had thought up a story to win over the hearts and minds of the ones he would call his comrades. Sasaki smirked, then said, So, you're saying all I have to do is say, I'll return then. That's it. Everything forgiven. He almost laughed at the thought of how simple everything was falling together. He was like a wolf standing before a young gullible lamb. The innocent lamb stepped forward, walking even closer to his hungry jaws. Yes, all you have to do is take my hand, Nar said. Sasaki snorted inwardly. Nar, you are so naive. Look, you even put your guard down. Sasaki stepped forward, giving a sincere smirk. Nothing too obvious to give away his true intentions. Wordlessly, he thought of the childhood story his mother used to read to him. A single phrase obtruded in his mind. Oh, grandmother, what large teeth you have. All the better to eat you with, he mumbled silently with his lips. Huh. Nar grunted. Nothing, he answered, then clasped Naruto's hand and quickly drew his blade. Nar thought it was almost a dream come true as Sasaki stepped forward to take his hand in peace. But randomly before they shook, Sasaki said something strange that put him off guard. All the better to eat you with. It was so random. Nar was taken aback. That was a childhood story. It was about a wolf who tricked a he felt a tensing of Sasuke's body. Before he could register what was going on, he saw a flash of steel, then a pain in the middle of his chest. He stared, still not comprehending what had happened. Not until he looked down to see the hilt of Sasuke's katana sticking out of his chest. Nar looked back up. He couldn't believe it. How could he have been so stupid? Did he really think Sasaki would see the error of his ways that quickly? Of course, it was all just a ploy to kill him. All of it was from the very beginning. Shame welled through Nar. How did he let Sasaki win so easily? How did he let himself get devoured by the wolf? But Nar couldn't finish that particular thought as he felt his knees give out. Wait a second. What the hell is going on? Oi, Fox, what the hell is wrong with you? Do your job. What? Do you think I can heal this kind of damage? Nar felt a chill go down his spine. Wait, can't you? He asked the fox suddenly afraid. Sorry kid, even I have my limits, but at least you will be able to see your dear mom and dad soon. Sasaki watched him with a look of amusement. Nar was kneeling on the ground before him as he retreated from his conversation with the fox. Already he felt a cold seeping through him, numbing his body and making him feel sluggish. His vision started to go foggy. He blinked his eyes trying to clear them, but then he heard Sasaki speak. You know, Nar, I actually do miss Konoha, he said languidly, stepping down next to him. I might return and enjoy it a little bit before I destroy it, he said casually. He could see the anger sparking in Naruto's dying eyes. How pitiful. Looks like the fox can't or won't help him, he thought to himself, not believing the luck he was having. He continued to taunt the blonde. It will be easy. I'll tell them of how you came to win me over, he said, placing a hand on Naruto's shuddering shoulders. Sasaki smirked, then gripped the shoulder tighter. He continued. How I finally saw the light to my path, he said, holding back laughter. Then, he said, sounding as if he was telling a story. We faced Ma together, but he turned his head away, bowing it as if sorry for the next thing he said. But alas, then you got caught in a genjutsu like you always do. You were never good at that, were you? He added, asking Nar. Nar made a gruntle sound as blood began to drip down his chin. Sasaki wiped it away as he spoke as if Nar were a child with food on his face. And before I could get to you, he had stabbed you. He gave a fake sob, grabbing Naruto's face, holding it as he stared into this angry, pleading, dying eyes. I tried saving you, he began softly leaning in. But sadly, I am not a medic ninja, he said finally. He sighed, then looked to Nar. He gave him a few pats on the shoulders. Don't worry, he said, pointing a finger into Naruto's chest. I'll tell them how your only regret was not being able to become Hokage. Then he stood up, wiping his hands. Oh, he said, remembering something randomly, I almost forgot. You also said that they should welcome me back to the village and trust me again. Sasaki said finally, giving off a cold, cruel smile, one that revealed how far gone his sanity truly was. Naruto felt a cold hatred run through him, even as he felt his life energy drained from him. He finally realized that he could not let this happen. He had to somehow stop this. But he was dying. He knew that Kyuubi's power was sealed away, so he couldn't heal. He had to stop Sasuke somehow. He needed to prove Sasaki wrong, that he was false, a betrayer, just like he always was. He was never going to change. Although he finally saw Sasaki for what he was, he had to have him return to the village. It was part of his promise, and no matter what, he never went back on his word. Maybe he could summon a toad and relay the message. No, it wouldn't work. The bastard was going to stand there and watch him die. He was enjoying this too much. He had to do something soon, though. He could feel already the unnatural pull of death near him. Nar had no option. He had to do something, anything with the Kyuubi. Anything that would grant him more time at least, or even stop this bloody war. He closed his eyes and fell back on the earth, surrendering himself one last time to the blackness of his inner self. He felt the real world fall away as he slipped into his inner realm where the Kyuubi was housed. He opened up the orb in which the Kyuubi was contained. The fox appeared. It growled and snapped at him, its fangs bared and its tails lashing. Nar was not affected. He spoke, his voice commanding attention. Listen up, you old fox. The fox paused, stunned for having a mortal speak such a way at him. I am dying right now. Well, no, Sherlock. The Kyuubi interjected, trying to remain the boss as always. Nar growled at him. He, a tiny human, growled at the Kyuubi. No Kitsune. That got the fox's attention. So, I want to make this quick. If you wish not to die with me, I would listen up. The fox perked his ears up, but remained silent. I will offer you freedom in return to some simple people needing to be killed. Now, the fox, who has been sealed inside humans for 3 generations, liked the idea of freedom, and the feeling of killing again made him quite susceptible to listening to Nar even more. Nar continued, when I die, the blonde started to say. He paused but shook his head, then gave a heavy sigh, gathering courage. When I die, he said stronger. I want you to kill the Akatsuki. They have been trying to get you for the longest time, and they have your brethren sealed away as well. Now that's all I wish. Just get rid of the Akatsuki. Do you think you can handle that? He said, challenging the Kyuubi. Kuruma stared down at the child. No, not child. He has grown. He even when facing death, he still thinks about others, about me. He cares about me. Why? What did I ever do him? I caused him harm and made a burden on him. And yet he wishes to free me and my siblings. This mortal has more guts than I. The fox thought of this sadly. A new feeling blossomed in the fox. He had a revelation. He lifted his head, then looked at the boy. He smiled. He would accomplish this task. He would not let this human who had changed him, who had cared for him like that man of long ago. Kuruma could see the shadow of that man somewhere in that boy's face. Pardon him, this young man's face. Kuruma nodded. He had long awaited the day where he could run free and escape the human hellhole. He was even overjoyed. He believed even that one of his tails was wagging. He stopped it before the mortal noticed. He was itching to get out. He wanted to get back at the Uchiha-ma, the man who had used him like an average weak summoning. A demon only has to fall for a trick once to build up immunity to it. So thus the sharing and any other forms of sharing would be no effect to him. The fox smiled. A fox always has something hidden up his sleeve. He said quietly to himself, what? Nar said up at him. Kuruma waved it from mind. He looked at Nar and said, I agree, Uzumaki. Naruto freedom in exchange for certain mortals' deaths understood like you. A demon can never go back on its word once it has created a pact. If one breaks it he loses his soul. He stated simply it was the truth, the brutal drag ugly truth. How they could lose something so precious for breaking a small thing. Why did their goddess make them like so? The demon and human studied each other for a bit, both of them finally realizing that the one who stood before him was not as bad as everyone thought it out to be. Nar then sighed and the chains binding the Kobe fell. The great fox nodded his head to Nar. He was one of the 2 humans to ever gain control over him. And no matter what you are, you have to honor that being and give him or her the utmost respect. The Kobe left Nar. Nar, being the Uzumaki he was like his mother. He didn't die right away. Instead, he got to watch the satisfying expression of Sasake's face as the Kobe appeared. The penchant Uchiha backed away quickly. Nar could see fear on the noble features of his rival. Something that at least gave him some amusement. Despite the situation already, he felt his life source drop to very low levels. He fought for breath as he turned his head to see Kobe with a triumphant roar. Lashed at Sasori of the Red Sand first, then another tail at Itachi, effectively breaking the genjutsu that held a part of the army. The ones captured fell to the ground, sighing in relief as they were saved from their private tortures. Naruto had to admit that Itachi was powerful to hold so many. No wonder he was a known master of genjutsu. Naruto spoke, finding it hard to find his voice, which was frightening for him. His voice always came so freely. Most of the time he was told to shut up or be quiet. What is the matter? Sash afraid the power. I used to control. You better watch yourself. Sash, I will be watching. He probably wouldn't, but he wanted to at least make an impression of the Uchiha. Gods knows he needed to be intimidated by something. Sasaki turned his head to him. Naruto dug his eyes into the others, wanting the Uchiha to never forget. He did this until his vision all but faded to black. Naruto wandered in a realm of complete and utter blackness for some time. Abial and depressing, it carried out for eons, it seemed. Before he could commence his freaking out, a light appeared. With a sigh, he went towards it. Unfathomably drawn to the warmth that radiated from it. But out of nowhere, a man appeared. Dressed in formal robes and holding a scroll in his hand. He floated, radiating in complete white. No, not white, even brighter than that. He floated in midair as he turned his pupilless eyes upon Nar, which unnerved him to some degree. Uzumaki Nar, said the man. The words resounded and hung in the air. As they came from lips that did not even move. You are forbidden to enter eternal peace. Nar could not manage a single syllable. You made a pact with a demon. An offense taken seriously to the heavenly beings. Demons are our sworn enemy. The cast-off kin of us. They disrupt our ways. They change the way we have foretold things, making the future unclear. Nar said nothing once more. Not because he had nothing to say, but because he couldn't. It was like they had taken his voice away from him. As said in the Holy Script, one who makes a deal with demons. He said, unrolling the scroll, is cursed to wander the earth unseen and unheard to mortals. With that being said, Nar suddenly found himself sitting on the ground in front of his own body. Sakura was in the medic tents working profusely trying to save lives and limbs. She heard another explosion go off. 2 more dead, 6 more wounded, and 3 more critical people going to be coming in. Sakura thought to herself, looking up from the man she was done with. Moving on to the next person. There is nothing we can do except relieve his pawn, she said, looking at the wound. Almost half his torso was ripped away. It was a wonder he was still alive. She was sad to let one with such a strong will die, but she had to. There was no way to fix him. If they did, it would take every last medic nin strength, something they couldn't afford. A great roar broke through the area, freezing everyone in their tracks as a pressure pushed around them. A pressure of a great power source. Familiar to her, but still so powerful, she shook. It was not like a roar of a man in pain. This was different. It was insurmountably greater. It shook the ground and scattered birds in the distance. A chill went down her spine because she knew that a roar and chakra signature like that could only belong to one thing. And that one thing was supposed to be far, far away, safe from all harm. Neatly sealed away in a person. A person with sunlight blonde hair and azure blue eyes who never ever gave up. So it was impossible that he was dead. But if that thing that roared was out fighting, killing, and to put it mildly, saving their asses, then the person it was once contained in had to be know was dead. Realization hit her like a fist from to the gut, and she was not the only one to put two and two together. She looked up into the eyes of her nearest squad member. She looked back in fearful, sad eyes. All of a sudden, Sakura found herself running out, abandoning her post and all of the wounded in the tent to go outside to confirm the great beast named the Nine Tails flex one of those said tails to destroy one of the Akatsuki like a flea. It gave a howl and sent more tails lashing out with such power. Swatting away Akatsuki like flies on a hot day, she saw one cloaked figure rise up. She saw the mask, no doubt it was Moa, trying to control the beast in ways she didn't know how. How could someone even think about controlling a force of nature? But Moa must not have listened to that lesson because he suddenly found himself crushed into the ground by one of that large hand-like paws. Wondering why the Shuriken was not working, a chuckle broke from the beast, and it roared as it finally had its own revenge of crushing the self-proclaimed immortal being. A few more flicks of its tails, and the Akatsuki was destroyed. Then with one last look and final victorious howl, it disappeared in a poof of smoke as it teleported itself away. A silence descended upon the ninja. Some had not yet registered. Still holding weapons, they waiting for the next wave of enemies, but none came. Ninja looked to each other. For a few moments, no one could comprehend what had happened. Then the silence broken in jubilation. All of them, no matter which nation they were from, reached out to each other, hugging, clapping, crying, not even knowing each other's names. They gripped one another. They did this just because they were happy. Happy they had survived, happy they had lived. A great cheer rose up from all of them. But then those of the Fire Nation died down. Realization hit them as well. One man of the sand, the cage, hadn't bothered to cheer with his men. Gar had already made his way to Sakura, who sat kneeling on the ground. Strength vanished from her, she cried. A look of silent grief etched upon his features. Sakura, I. She shook her head. It can't be H. He was sent away. F for safety. It might be a trick or something. But even she could not lie to herself. Tears already flooded from her eyes. Gar merely held her as she cried. She cried though, not because of grief, but also in a small way happiness. When she saw all the men of different nations, joining together and laughing, crying, cheering, seeing them come together in peace, she knew Naruto's dream had come true. His dream of peace was met. Yet sadness hit her harder when she realized that he would never get to see it. Sakura broke from him. We have to find him. She screamed, her voice. She ran, not knowing where to look, but she would find him. She had to. Gar chased after her. They passed by Ka and Shikamaru, who were coming in from the battle. As they helped drag in the wounded, watched them. They tried to stop Sakura, but to no avail. You just couldn't, and you didn't want to. Nar sat unnervingly staring into his own dead eyes. He didn't remember bleeding from the mouth when he died, but I guess it was so because blood covered the bottom half of his face and still dripped out. Then he did remember randomly Sasaki had wiped something from his face. It had to have been blood. His entire front of his jacket was drenched in the crimson substance, dyeing the fabric a muddy brown. Damn it, that was my favorite jacket, he thought to himself. Then looked to his face. Even an idiot could tell after one look of his face knew he died painfully. Although he couldn't remember grimacing when had he done that, Sasaki suddenly rose. Oh, awake from our Kamiyo's emo bastard state, or we Nar thought with disgust. Sasaki leaned forward and gripped his sword hilt. He braced a foot on Naruto's cadaver and pulled it out with a grunt. It took some effort, but finally with a ripping sound, it came free. It must have been lodged in his spine or something. Calmly, he sat back down and brought out his kit that he used to clean his precious blade. He then absently began to purge the blade from the blood. Then, all of a sudden, he heaved it into the ground. Nar jumped in surprise at the sudden movement. Plus, it had fell through his foot. Why? God damn it. Why? He screamed to the heavens. Naruto was unnerved by the sound of pain in his voice. It almost made his heart go out to him. Almost. Sasaki continued. Why? Why did my clan have to be destroyed? Look what I have done to avenge it. Destroy my brother. Now my best friend. Tears fell from him. Naruto. I swear if I had grown up normally without the clan massacre, we probably would be best friends and we would have grown old together sharing stories. But I can't. I couldn't, he said sobbing, his voice cracking. I won't let that village get away with what they did to my clan, what they did to Enshin, the pain they caused him and me. He cried silently for a bit, soft sobs racking his body. He continued, you were in my way. I had to do it right. He directed the question to dead Nar as though he was asking Naruto's corpse if it was perfectly okay to kill him. Nar had to admit he felt sorry for him. Wait, he felt sorry for the man who killed him. He shook his head. What was wrong with him? What the hell? Nar exclaimed. Do you really think the only way at getting revenge is killing everything? he said, getting up yelling at Sasaki, who said you had to get revenge in the first place anyways. Why did you have to go and be a massive idiot all over the place, you underscore, Nar cursed himself and Sasaki. He sat back down, crossing his arms over his chest. This sucks. He can't even hear me. This sucks majorly. What the hell am I going to do? Nar lamented in his pain by himself. Sasaki had grown silent and Kamiyo's once more and no amount of jeering form Naruto seemed to wake him. Naruto had tried poking him, but found out that his hand as well would fall through Sasuke's flesh. Naruto had screamed then in fright and backed away at that. It was too creepy. He really was a ghost. He hyperventilated for a bit until he calmed down and watched as a certain pinkett ran up to his body. She collapsed and sobbed into his bloody chest, not caring that his blood was getting into her precious hair. Shikamaru, Ka, and Gar were behind her. They all looked down at his body, then to Sasaki. They converged on him. But when Shikamaru lifted him to punch him, he saw the tears and hesitated. He glanced to Ka, then to Gar. They shrugged, not knowing what to think or do. Shikamaru instead knocked Sasaki unconscious, then tied his hands behind his back, not sure of what else to do, but then they also turned to his body. All three of them looked down at Naruto as Sakura tried to clean up some blood coming from his face, wiping it clean of the offending substance. Shikamaru looked away. Damn it, Naruto. This wasn't how it was going to be. I thought you said you were going to be Hokage. How are you going to be able to do that when you're dead? Shikamaru said, letting a few tears fall. This is so troublesome, he gasped out as he wiped tears that came out of his eyes. This was the second time he had lost someone important to him. First Asuma and now Naruto. What cursed world was he going to have to live in from now on? Gar suddenly fell to his knees, crying as well. Nar, he said, you and me were one of a kind. You were the only other person I knew to be like me. You saved my life more times than I can count. You taught me to believe and to feel love again. We were going to be cages together. You said to me once, it was us against the world. Now I guess it's only me. Gar bowed his head as tears slipped from his pale blue orbs. Heya placed a hand on his shoulder, giving some comfort. They stayed there, numbly, absorbing the shock for a few moments of silence before Kakashi, whose arm was bandaged with blood-soaked wrappings, sank to his knees as well. Guy appeared next to him and put a hand on his shoulder. Tenten and Neji ran up next, both of them covered in scratches and Neji limping slightly. Lee is in the medic tents, Guy-sensei, Tenen said absently before looking at Naruto, then turning away. Her shoulders moved up and down, hinting to the fact that she was sobbing. Neji closed his eyes and said nothing. Ka looked around. Where is Hinata? He asked. Neji answered. She is helping the medics look after Choji, Lee, and Shino. Ka gave a curt nod. Good. She doesn't need to see this. I'll tell her the news if she hasn't figured it out already. Kakashi suddenly started to talk. I was supposed to protect him. He was my student and my mentor's only son. And I failed them both. I do not deserve to be a ninja. He choked out. He then slumped against Guy's leg. Guy leaned down and waved a hand in front of Kakashi's visible eye. He didn't focus or flinch or anything. Kakashi. Guy yelled out, shaking Kakashi's shoulders. Crap. He's going into shock or something. He looked to Sakura, who was unable to talk, much less perform her duties as a medic ninja. With a growl, he hauled Kakashi over his shoulder, then said to Nae, I'm taking Kakashi in. Someone get a body bag and mark it good so we know who is in it. He yelled angrily, these children, what were they doing? Now was not the time to grieve. They had duties to perform. Neo did and rubbed the few tears out of his eyes. I'll get the body bag and some people have to take Sasaki in his AP for the time being before we can sort through what happened. Is everyone understood? He asked looking around. Silent nods answered him. Sakura started to pull herself together. Said she had duties to perform. Already her mind was going through how Naruto died. A sharp projectile punctured his skin and clipped the superior vein cave and the ascending aorta entering at a slight angle missing spine but clipped the nerve ending controlling movement to the legs. Sakura sighed. Even if he did survive, he would have been paralyzed from the waist down. But even so, it probably would still be better than dead, she thought to herself. But something told her, no, that Nar wouldn't be able to handle something like that. But maybe he could. Maybe he would have been those people who keep on running when they can't even walk. But he died from blood loss, she said, snapping herself from her thoughts. Further analysis would tell me more of his conditioning, but I, as a medic ninja, declare him dead at the scene. Utsuaki Naruto, age 17, rank Chunin, Konohan ninja, died at 531 on November 17. She then stood stiffly. My job as a medic ninja is done. She then stumbled away. Nar also stood and stumbled away. He couldn't believe it either. He knew that he was dead. It was pretty obvious he had done the damn dying, but it just hit him fully now. He was dead now. He was a ghost of some sort. Well, not some sort. He was a full-on ghost. And it was true. None of them could hear him. He had screamed and begged for them to hear him back there. He just wanted to desperately make them feel better. It was ironic. He was dead, yet he was trying to comfort them. He ran away. Away from his friends and away from that arsed ground. Away from that terrible war everything. He just ran, not knowing what to do or where to go. Nar finally stopped in a clearing of trees next to a fast-rushing river. He peered into the water but saw nothing. Of course not. I'm dead so I wouldn't have a reflection. He turned away from the river only to chance upon a sight he never had seen before. A fox maybe twice the size of a horse lay stretched out basking in the sun. Its 9 identical tails curled passively around it. Kob Nurid finally said. The fox opened an eye lazily, then seemed to register him. Ah, it's you kid. I see you got the boot for dealing with me. Sorry about that, he said as though he were talking to Nar about the weather. Nar stared at him confused. What do you mean? He asked. Let me guess. They said something about you made a deal with me and said that you were forbidden to enter heaven. Am I right? Naruto's mouth gaped open. That was exactly so. Why? Yeah, Nar said. The fox snorted. They are still hung up on that. Yesh, those gods can really hold a grudge. Well, like I said, I apologize for that. My bad. Nar blinked as he sat down. So, what do I do now? Caillou spoke without opening his eyes. He must really like the sun apparently. Travel the world. Do whatever. He said waving a paw as if trying to shoo Nar away like a pesky toddler. Nar slumped down. Note Kob can hear and see Naruto because he is immortal and a demon. But what about Konoha? How am I going to warn them of Sasake's plans? Then after some time, he added sadly, how am I going to save my friends? The fox opened his eyes and lifted his large muzzle. His fur seemed to glow in the sunlight as his warm eyes gazed into Naruto's. Kob sighed, scratching his head. You know, usually when you die, you leave that stuff behind and forget about it. Nar shook his head standing up suddenly. No, he said sharply. Konoha was my home. It was my father's home. It is where all the people I care about the deepest lie. I can't let that get destroyed. I must protect them. I must protect them all because they are the ones I treasure most. Nar said looking into the Kaili startled eyes. Kaili with a heavy sigh stood. Nar looked up at the fox. Where are you going? He asked as the fox shifted his bulk around. The fox glared at him. I'm not going anywhere. I am just getting ready for what I am about to do. Before Naruto could say anything, the fox spoke with a great booming voice the proclaiming to all the earth. Seemed. Hear me all demons from this world and the next. This is Kob no Yandi. He paused for a moment. I have traveled far and wide, but have never met a soul so strong and willful to continue on his quest even in death. If any demon can give this soul away to fulfill this desire, answer my call. Seconds passed by and nothing happened. But then from out of the woods, a figure emerged, riding a large white wolf, hair dark as a tree bark, sprouting vines and flowers, eyes green as the grass beneath Naruto's feet. She came closer, her alluring eyes looking into his. She was clad in a loose dress the color of earth that flowed freely from her body like wind. It was bunched at the waist, clasped with a sea blue sash that had designs etched upon it that Naruto knew no words to describe them. Her skin was like an almond shell glowing like sunlight drifting over water. Silver necklaces set with burning amber enveloped her throat while rubies dangled from her ears. Gold brackets chimed with her every movement as she made her way towards them. She dismounted from her mighty suite who disappeared with a poof. She stood before them in her full glory. Naruto looked away. He felt like he didn't deserve to see her beauty. She chuckled, her voice chiming, astounding, beguiling. Greetings, Kalubi. I am Ukami no Megumi, your goddess. I am here to answer your request, my creation. Kalubi bowed with a graceful opulence, then lifted his eyes to her. What is your gift? He asked her softly, like a child talking to his mother. The goddess smiled and placed a hand under his chin, lifting his head lightly. She spoke, showing off her pure white teeth. New life, she whispered with excitement. Kalubi widened his eyes. You know that's he began but she silenced him. I know I can't bring him back as a human but I can bring him back as one of my own creations. She turned her head to him raising her eyebrow in amusement. Nar, are you willing to do whatever it takes to protect those you wish to protect? Nar nodded, stepping forward, her bare feet falling on the ground as delicately as a deer's would, even if it meant returning into a body that is not your own. Nar nodded. At this moment, he would take anything. He would do anything to save the village he loved. She paused before him, her complete radiance almost blinding Nar. Good, very good. I am pleased, she said, her voice carrying smoothly like a bird's song. Step forward, she commanded him as if trying to calm a startled creature. Nar did as he was bided. All argument and free will seemed to vanish. She then spoke. Nar, I will give you the power and the stamina of a wolf, as well as the mind and versatility of the fox. She said. Studying him, Nar found his voice. What are you going to do to me? He asked her if he had a heart. He knew it would be beating like a hammer in his chest. With a coy smile, she spoke. Nar, my dear, I am turning you into a demon. Nar stared at her, not knowing what to say. She placed a hand on his shoulder. He felt a great warmth fill him as though he was being set on fire. Only it didn't hurt like it was a good fire. She spoke to him, words falling from a faraway place. I am placing your soul into a new body. This may tingle. He felt life flow into him once more, filling up his hollowed form. She was right. He tingled all over. He felt like a newborn lamb shaking in the fear of this new strange world. Then he felt the change. Sinking, he shrunk towards the ground. His jaws extending forward, his eyes positioning farther apart and back. His hairs seemed to move to the top of his head. It felt weird, both bad and good at the same time. He felt a prickling sensation as his skin grew fur. So much fur he felt warm and covered. He felt internal changes, lungs expanding, spin shifting, organs moving about, and yet it did not hurt. His body continued this metamorphosis until with one last burst of heat it was done. Opened his new eyes, he peered up the ground. He looked up. Already everything was different. His view on the world was drastically changed. His senses felt too strong, too bright, too loud, too smelly, too much. He groaned and clamped his eyes shut. He felt his new heart thrumming in his chest. But he felt a calming hand on his shoulder. Its warmth drifted down through his thick fur. He looked up into eyes. That gave him the stability and the reassurance he needed. She beamed down at him. Rise, she said softly. He did so, not breaking his eye contact with her. It was different on 4 legs instead of 2, but he got the hang of it. Kobe stepped up to him already. His nose was registering everything about the fox. Okay, Nar, now it's time to make you a demon. May I? Kobe said, looking to the goddess. She nodded. Of course, you may, Kobe grinned. Welcome to our world, my new brother. Kobe said as he felt a great power well inside of him. It surged through him, filling to almost the point of breaking. I am giving your own chakra network. All demons have them. Nar groaned. He could tell by the density of his network that he had a lot of chakra, and it was potent, much stronger than any humans. Kobe and the goddess stepped back. The goddess circled him, muttering under her breath. Yes, yes, this will do. Excellent craftsmanship, Kuruma. The fox lifted his head higher, growing from the compliment. With a final affirmative nod, the goddess stepped back. Yes, it is finished. Now go to the riverside, Nar, and see what you have become. Nar tentatively went to the river, peering into the water to see what he looked like. He gasped as what looked back at him surprised him. A light cream-colored wolf with his deep azure eyes. The wolf was covered with very fine soft thick fur. Had large wide paws, a deep long chest which would be perfect for running long distances for long periods of time. This super frame was held up by long powerful legs. His body was short and sturdy with a long fox-like tail attached. Upon said tail was a tip of pure white marking the small bit of fox within him. He turned back to the goddess and Kobe. The goddess stepped forward, almost standing on top of him. Are you ready? She said, grinning softly. Nar was confused. Ready for what? The goddess smirked. The beginning of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. Without warning, she pushed him into the river. The powerful current easily captured him. He fought against the torrent, trying to keep his head up. The water roared around him. When he managed to come back up, he yelled at her, coughing water. What was that for? I can't get out. The current is too strong. The goddess who was growing smaller by the second seemed to speak into his mind. Then let the current take you one. That being said, Naruto lost his battle with the current and he let it carry him away. Hinata worked herself until someone forced her to stop. But she didn't want to because if she stopped, she would have nothing to keep her mind from the thoughts that just hovered out of her consciousness. Like vultures slowly circling above. She knew she had to face it, but she didn't want to. She tried reasoning and making up excuses, but it did no good. She knew Naruto was dead, that there was nothing she could do about it. He was gone, and he was out of her life forever. The realization hit her. She dropped what she was holding and stumbled out of the tent. She felt weak and sick. Grief and hopelessness overtook her as she crumpled to the ground and sat unable to think coherently. With every sound of footsteps, she hoped it was Naruto returning. Yet each time it was revealed to be someone else, she became more and more lost into her grief. She slumped herself next to a tree, clamped a hand over her mouth, her fingers digging into her face. A arm gripped across her chest as she bit her hand, and sobbed. She desperately wanted to control herself, but could not. Memories and tears flooded her relentlessly. Her voice became sore, unable to produce more sound. As her heart and entire being seemed to ache with a feeling of empty hollowness, she didn't know how long it was. But finally, the tears stopped, but still the sadness clung to her. She knew no name for it, only though it felt as if she were a ghost among the others. Alone in her own little world of perpetual grief and agony. Then, a figure clad in dark purple strode towards her. It was Ka. She looked up at him and into his dirt-smeared face. She could see the trail of tears down his cheeks, marring the dirt in his clanface paint. It only confirmed her worst fears. Suddenly, an anger overwhelmed her. Anger at everyone and everything. How could they let him die? How dare the others around them not cry? Nar was the best and greatest person she ever known. Ha reached for her. She striked at him like a snake, a cold venom building in her blood. Don't touch me. You let him die. He's dead. 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 And I'll never see him again. She screamed. The voice seemed not her own. Even though she heard it fall from her lips, she felt her tongue contort and create the vile syllables as she screamed in rage at her classmate, teammate, and dear friend. She screamed at the top of her lungs, not caring if the entire camp heard. She pulled at her hair and face, trying to release the emotion in any way she knew how. Finally, the wave of anger passed as exhaustion took over. She felt weak and terrible. She collapsed, clutching Ka's leg like it was her lifeline. Ka, she sobbed. What do I do? What do I do? She asked. Ka bent down and reached for her. This time, she wrapped herself as tightly as she could. Wanting to feel some comfort. Any comfort at all. Gar, nay, Shikamaru, and Yamato carried in the body bag with Naruto in. It had the mark of Konoha insignia on it, but to further separate it from the many other bags. They immortalized a swirl on it so everyone knew it was Naruto's. Ka had went off to find Hinata while the rest carried Naruto's corpse to the body collectors. They were set up and sealing the bodies in special sealing scrolls made for the dead. One man in charge looked at them. He opened up a ledger book name. He said professionally. Shikamaru almost said his own but realized they were asking for the body's name. He spoke after removing the lump in his throat. Yu Suzuki Naruto. The man sighed sadly and nodded. Even he, a Konohaba body collector, had heard the feats of this young man. Who couldn't? He saved so many people in so many ways and so many countless times. Age 17, right? The man said, filling in the blacks. They nodded. Too young. The man added under his breath. Another group of nods. The man looked up. He's technically a genin, right? Shikamaru smirked despite himself. That was right. Nar never got his rank promoted. What with the attack in the war? The man spoke. Well, from what I witnessed and heard, he's more skilled than that. I'll give him the highest rank I can give. A new captain, right? He got promoted before we left. Shikamaru widened his eyes, then realized that was probably true. Naruto was skilled enough for that. Shikamaru nodded, casing onto what the man was saying. Yeah, Shikamaru spoke. He wouldn't stop bragging about it. Shikamaru said, turning to Gar. Gar nodded. Don't worry, you have Suna's full authority to claim him as a Konoha elite. They set Naruto down gently. Gar looked down at Naruto's black bag with the Konoha swirl. He knelt and placed a hand upon it, skimming his fingers over it. Goodbye, my best and greatest friend, he said quietly. Bowing his head, he started the first line of a well-known poem. We thrive in the chaos of enemy tide. Shikamaru joined in. Quiet shinobi don't need dens to hide. The others joined in at this time, and they finished in unison. Our only concern is to watch and to wait for our enemy to open the gate. When the small memorial was said, the body handlers took the bag, giving it the utmost care as they laid it down to be sealed in the special scroll that would halt the decaying process, at least until they got to Konoha and prepared for his funeral. They staggered out free of the physical burden, but then were weighed down by the emotional burden. Just then they heard a woman scream, "You let him die. Now I'll never see him again." Just as suddenly as it rose, it quieted. They all could guess who that was. Looks like she took the news hard, Neji said. I think we all did, Shikamaru said. I mean, Nar is the first from Rookie 9 to die. A cold chill hit all of their spines. Who is next? SPL led across all their minds. But then, Yamato said, do not worry. Remember, we have achieved one of Naruto's goals, peace. Something Naruto would be damn proud of all of you for doing. Shikamaru smirked and let a tear slip of remembering their comrade. Yeah, but we couldn't have done it without him. I bet that idiot is looking down on us now, eating every bowl of ramen in sight and annoying the heck out of Old Man Third and every other soul in heaven. A small outburst of laughter came from the group as they all thought of him, all of them knowing that's exactly like Nar. Shikamaru turned to Gar. So now what? Gar looked at him. The nations will break camp in the morning, going out separate ways. Everyone will be slowed down due to injured in the wagons carrying the supplies. But everyone will return home eventually. But right now, tonight is the night of honoring our fallen and celebrating our win. Which means I am going to go get drunk in my tent. I will see you tomorrow. With that, the case cage left them. That night, true to his word, many ninja and kunoichi did get drunk. Most of them were quiet about it. In fact, Neji, Shikamaru, and Ka all drank until they could not even walk straight. But the reason was only to rid the feeling of sadness for their fallen comrade. Also, it was the only way for them to sleep that night, what with all the memories haunting them. Hinata woke in the morning, her sore eyes slowly opening. She moaned as she got up. Sakura was already out, her bags and bedroll cleaned up, probably doing her rounds at the medic tent. Hinata thought. She rose and went to the command station where many other ninjas stood waiting. Suddenly, there was a flurry of movement and all 5 cages came out of the tent. Guard to Hinata seemed sluggish. B. Saningu guarded his brother's armless side. B gave a nod to Hinata. She nodded back. Attention, called out Danzo. It is time for the 5 nations to break up camp. Each nation will head in the direct vicinity of their home. We have requested that all clan members group together and head out in alphabetical order. There was some mumbling and grouching about. But by midday, Konoha ninja were heading out. Hinata walked far behind of the Hyuga clan. Even Neji, who was the heir to the second branch, was ahead of her. No one bothered her, and if they did feel bothered about it, they did not mention it. Mostly due to the vast number and the supply train and injured. Travel was slow. They ended up guiding themselves by a river that tore through the land. They traveled no more than at least 100 yards from it. Hinata felt it refreshing, hearing the distant sound of the water. It gave her something to think about, leaving her mind from wandering. Naruto tore and scratched at the muddy bank, grappling for something to grab onto and pull himself out of the river. He was dog-tired, no pun intended, and desperately wanted the feel of solid ground beneath his paws. Finally, Naruto got hold of a wrangled old tree root. He pulled himself half out of the water, then guided himself down a few meters until he came to a small eddy. He pulled himself out of the water and plopped down next to a patch of water reeds. He welcomed the few rays of sunlight to warm him and the slight wind to dry himself off. As he sunk into a dreamless sleep, Hinata woke up the next day feeling slightly refreshed from the long trek they had took. Deciding to get some peace and quiet before the other ninja woke up. She left her tent. It was early morning. The sun just beginning to rise in the west. She walked briskly in the crisp air. The leaves on the trees were edged with yellow, hinting that fall was on its way. She walked through the small line of forest before coming upon the view of the fast river. She sighed once more as she contemplated about Nar. There was a small twinge of pain and a deep stab of sorrow still fresh upon her heart. But she knew life would go on. She knew if Naruto was there, he would want her to go on. And so she shall. Even if the barest memory of him dragged her into a raging hurricane of agony and sorrow. She followed the river for quite some ways when she stumbled upon a poor sight. A creature lying on its side in an exhausted heap. It was a light creme color, rather large, but a quarter smaller than Akamaru, yet still quite big. Its fur was ragged and damp, but she saw a side move in a slight breathing pattern. She carefully made a sound, giving away her presence. The ears perked up, and the head turned her way. Her eyes were inexplicably captured by light blue ones. Hinata instantly recognized that this creature was a wolf, and that this wolf, for some strange crime against nature, was not wild or hostile. It looked at her with eyes that held a certain stability and curiosity. Its tail wagged slightly. Hinata bent down. She held out a hand. She made soft, calming sounds. The wolf staggered to its feet. Fear clutched in her throat, but she remained strong. The wolf hesitantly moved towards her. She let him come to her. Then, when he relaxed next to her, she hesitantly reached her hand to him, hoping, praying that he wouldn't bite her. Those jaws were full, so sharp fangs. What? Why was she doing this? All right. The eyes so serene, beautiful, calming. He slightly jumped when she touched him, but he stayed put. Amazed, she ran her fingers through his damp, soft fur. She did this for who knows how long, feeling his super form beneath her, the power that emanated from within. What kind of power was this? Soon it grew apparent that the camp was starting to wake up. She stood and gave him a final pat. I would love to take you, Fluffy Wolf, she said, nicknaming it on the spot. But I don't want to take you away from your home in the wild. The wolf looked at her as if he actually understood her with those unnerving, intelligent eyes. Hinata turned to walk away. The wolf was instantly by her side in step. She paused. He paused. She continued. He continued. She paused once more. He did so again. She turned to him and motioned him away, but he stood resolute. As if to say, do you really think that will work? And she sighed and continued on walking with her newfound companion in tow. She was caught up in thinking of how she was going to explain this. Okay, I don't really think this would work in real life, and I don't think any of you children should just go up to any wild animal or injured animal and start petting it. You might end up hurt or worse. This is a warning, but if an animal is hurt or sick, notify your local law enforcement and they will figure out the best course of action. She walked into camp. No one had yet noticed her new four-legged shadow. But she didn't want to take the chance of him being hurt. His look screamed, wolf. And kill on sight, so she continued on quickly to her tent and started to pack. She then found an old headband she used to wear that had a scratch on the top. She shrugged and whistled for the wolf. He walked up to her and made no fuss. When she put it around his neck, he actually seemed to swell in pride. She stood with satisfaction. He looked less dangerous now. She continued to pack. Just then, Ino walked in. She saw the wolf and screamed. Hinata quickly covered her mouth. She pushed Ino out of her tent so that she could explain, but she wasn't quick enough. Shikamaru and Choji, who had a broken arm and many bruises on his face, came up. Ino's wrong. Hinata, who's still covering the struggling blonde's mouth, spoke. It's nothing. She just won't calm down, so I can explain. Shikamaru quirked an eyebrow at her. Explain what? Then the dog stepped out. Hinata smiled sweetly. My new friend I found. Shikamaru looked at the wolf, then to Choji, then back to her. Hinata, damn, this is troublesome. Hinata let go of Ino. Ino staggered back. Why on earth do you have that wild animal? Hinata looked at him. He's not wild. Look how calm and nice he is. Ino looked at the wolf again. Then back to her. Yeah, but still. What if he has rabies or something like that? Why is he wearing a Konoha symbol? Are you going to train him like Akamaru? You're a Hyuga. You don't train animals. One question after another, the blonde bombarded her. I don't think he has rabies. I know what a dog looks like with rabies, and he's wearing that so no one tries to hurt him. She added after a brief pause. I might train him and it doesn't mean a goddamn thing if I am a Haug. I can have a pet if I want. All of them stood shocked at her use of a swear word. Fine then. What's his name? Said Ino, getting over the shock. Hinata folded her arms. Fluffy. I am naming him Fluffy. Fluffy seemed to choke and whine for a second. I mean, imagine what Naruto would feel like when a person just blurts out his new name is Fluffy. But then sat down and looked up at them. Watching Hinata out of the corner of his eye, Shikamaru and the others looked at each other, but Ino finally shrugged. Okay then, Fluffy is your new pet. Fine, whatever, she said, walking away. Shikamaru then added, all of us are having breakfast at Kakashi's camp. We are going to have a small memoriam for Nar. Fluffy perked his ears up at Shikamaru, staring with an intentive gaze that made Shikamaru shudder. It was so unnerving. His blue wolf eyes watched him like a hawk and had a look of mystery and intelligence behind them. Hinata seemed to stiffen but nodded, her voice growing soft as her eyes seemed to wander unknown memories. Why yes, I'll be there as soon as I finish packing up. Shikamaru frowned. Listen, Hinata, I know this is weird and hard. I mean, even I am having some trouble getting used to this. It's like too quiet without Nar around and everything has become so distant. Naruto was like the glue that held us together. Shikamaru paused with Nar. Everything was carefree and relaxed with him. You could be super sad or angry and Nar would just say or do something and he had you thinking about the bright side of life. That was Naruto's gift. But you and everyone needs to know we are still ninjas and this peace probably won't last. Something will happen and we'll be back to being enemies again. Maybe not with Suna, he said casually shrugging. But with others. So, we have to do our jobs. You need to learn that not all of us are going to make it. And that when one doesn't return, you need to fill in that place and not be lost like you are. It will cause others to die. And with that, Shikamaru turned and walked away, his hands in his pockets. Hinata shook her head, stopping the flood of tears. She bent to the ground and looked at Fluffy. Shikamaru's right. I need to be stronger, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. I have always been a pushover, controlled by my clan and my father. I must get stronger. You'll help me, right? Fluffy, the wolf looked at her, compassion and resolve in his eyes. Once again, Hinata felt as though this wolf had something inside of him, something strong and great. With those eyes that spoke of wisdom and understanding, she knew that Fluffy would be a strong base for her to lean on when times were hard. Hinata and Fluffy walked to Kakashi's camp. Kakashi had gotten over his shock, but he still looked quite sad. Although he was pulling himself together, absorbing what strength he could from Guy and the others, it was like they were slowly adding kindle to his will of fire. All of them turned when she walked up with Fluffy by her side, Sakura and the others an eyebrow. But it was Ka who walked up to her. He said not a word, but bent down and grabbed Fluffy gruffly. He pulled back his lids to look at the eyes. He checked the gums and a few other things before standing up and saying, perfectly healthy, but to what he is exactly, I can't tell. He looks wolf, but something about him. Wait a second. He then grabbed Fluffy's tail and looked at the tip. He then seemed to study him more intently. Then he backed away. Holy, he said. Hinata looked at him, worried. What is it? Is there something wrong? He's part fox. Hinata gasped. You mean he's a wolf? Fox. KBA nodded. Maybe a lone male wolf came across a female fox in heat, but it's really rare for it to happen, but not unheard of. She looked down at Fluffy. Is that bad? Heya scratched his head. Well, some people believe when you mix breed wild animals, something gets messed up, and sometimes they don't develop right. So, he might look right on the outside, but he might be bad on the inside or his behavior got messed up. Hinata looked at Fluffy, but he's okay to keep. Ka rubbed his chin. He didn't really want to disappoint her. You would have to have my sis check him out. Then we'll see. But until then, just watch him. Fluffy watched Ka. A cool studying look as though he was thinking or planning something. But Ka let that go. Even Akamaru never thought farther than what was in his stomach. The only dog he ever known to think like that was Kurumuru, his mother's familiar, who had the ability to talk. Ka shrugged it off. Just then, Akamaru stalked up. He growled low at Fluffy. Fluffy glanced at him and flicked an ear in indifference. Akamaru let out a loud growl. Kaba gave him a command of stand down, but Akamaru ignored it. Ka gave it once more and reached for his collar, but it was too late. Akamaru sprung. Hinata gasped and leapt away, her body acting on instinct. Fluffy stood braced and ready, yet still had a look of calmness around him. Naruto waited until Akamaru was in midair, then dashed underneath the barreling brute. Akamaru landed where he used to be. Surprised at not landing on his target, Akamaru turned around as fast as his massive size would let him. Ignoring Ka's commands, pure hate came from him. Nar simply waited. He knew enough that in fights where one is fueled by rage, that person would run out of energy first. He grinned, knowing to attack just when they are at their weakest. Nar backed up, leading Akamaru towards the fire that lay behind him, hidden from Akamaru's view. Nar stopped. Judging that the distance was accurate enough, Akamaru charged him. Like being in a bullfight, Naruto stepped aside at the last moment, letting the dog slip by him and slide his great ugly nose into the fire. The dog let out a howl of pain and jumped away from the fire. Everyone just moved into the trees, seeing how it was a fight between them two. Hinata hoped Fluffy would be alright. Akamaru glanced over at Nar growling as loud as he possibly could, then ran to him teeth barbered and eyes burning, enraged. Nar dodged the wicked fangs and the huge dog for a few moments. But Akamaru got a lucky swat with his front paw and sent Nar into the air. Nar was ready and caught himself and landed on his feet, his hind legs touching a tree. Nar smirked slightly. This was too good to be true, cause already the dog was barreling down on him. Naruto stood patiently waiting. Then at the last moment, he flipped backwards and pushed himself off the tree just above the colliding body. He then jumped forward and landed as Akamaru was picking himself up. Akamaru groggy got to his feet and turned towards him. He barely stood on his feet but charged forward once more. Nar got bored of this game and charging a small sliver of chakra into his paw. He hit Akamaru against the ear, making the dog crash to the ground in a heap. This time he didn't get back up. Nar just smirked and trotted happily over to Hinata, who was getting down from the tree she had stood in. She bent down and hugged him. Good boy, Fluffy. I am so proud of you. Ka apologized to everyone and then grabbed Akamaru by the scruff of his neck. Akamaru moaned and whimpered. You are in big trouble, little mister. Sakura looked at Ka. Little, she said. Ka shrugged. Yeah, he's a pup to me still. Everyone grimaced. I don't see it. Shikamaru said, turning to Hinata. He's a pretty good fighter. That Fluffy or Ka is just a bad trainer. Ka glowered. Hinata smiled and laughed. I do believe it is both, Shikamaru. Everyone chuckled at KBA's embarrassment. That's not funny. Ka interjected. Besides, he didn't fight. He just stood in front of things and dodged out of the way so that Amaru ran into things. It wasn't fair, Ka proclaimed, coming to Akamaru's defense. Kakashi placed a hand on Ka's shoulder, silencing him. Ka, nothing is ever fair. Not fights or wars or even peace, because life in itself is not fair. The small smile on everyone's face fell softly. Sakura then piped up. We built a small shrine to say goodbye to Naruto in the tent. It's big enough for us all. Well, say a small prayer then. Have breakfast ramen in remembrance of Nar. Naruto's stomach growled at that, but luckily no one heard. They all walked into the tent. At the far side of it was a small wooden table erected with a picture of Nar. Nar recognized it. It was the picture they took of him after the last war meeting was over in Konoha. They were goofing off with a camera and took a picture of him. In it, his arms were folded over his chest as two birds perched on both of his shoulders. He smiled at the memory. It was when he was showing off his sage powers. In the picture, he smiled deeply, almost laughing in a way. His eyes were bright and shining. He looked so strong yet graceful in a way, so calm and happy. They bowed and went over the ritual prayers for death. Then Kakashi got up. Nar, I don't know if you can hear me or any of us, but we are here to say goodbye formally. You were kind and thoughtful, yet strong and a little stubborn some of the time. There was a pause, okay, most of the time, but all of this made you. No one could say you never gave it your all, cause that is what you always did. You would turn the impossible into possible, and sometimes small things like teaching a simple jutsu that was possible to others, impossible to you. There was a small round of light laughter from everyone. Kakashi sighed. I remember all the times you annoyed me to no end, blabbering away with that trademark loud voice. I thought it would be a relief if I could no longer hear it, but sadly I was mistaken. Now there is a heavy silence where you once filled with laughter and noise. A few of them had tears in the corners of their eyes, even some of the guys. Ka wiped away his quickly. He glanced to Hinata, who cried silently. Ka reached a hand out and held hers, giving her some comfort. He knew how hard it was on her. Hinata looked up to him. She glanced at him, tears trailing down her cheeks. She looked so innocent and graceful when she cried. She smiled and mouthed the word, thanks to him. Ka glanced away, unsure of what to say. So, he continued holding her hand. Kakashi continued, I just want you to know that even though you are no longer with us, and that the days will go by turning into weeks and years, yet no matter what, you will always be in our hearts and our minds. It is where you have always been, even if you didn't know it. Nar sat dumbfounded and shocked. He quickly wiped a tear from his eye before anyone saw. Kakashi, I wish I could speak because then I would tell you you are not alone and that I finally realized you were right. But even if I could, I can't. Not yet. There is something that I must do to keep all of you safe. I am doing all of this for you. And with that, Naruto slowly slipped out of the tent, leaving them to conduct the ceremony by themselves. Fate was on his side because just then he saw four Andu walk by guarding a person that made his blood go cold and his heart skip a beat. There he was, the one who had killed him, his murderer, the one now moving his sights unto his own home. Uchiha Sasaki. Naruto growled low after they passed and then followed them quietly. Sasaki entered through the tent flap. The Ambu stood on either sides of him. Danzo stood by a lightweight traveling desk, his hands folded behind his back. Danzo nodded to the Ambu guards who took the signal and left them. So it was just Danzo and Sasaki in the tent. Danzo studied him for a bit, then said, Uchiha Sasaki, what can I do for you? Sasaki said nothing. I want to go back to Konoha. The Hokage looked at him and smirked. I know that, but why? Sasaki smirked. I wish to see all my friends again and right the wrongs I did. Danzo smirked. Do you really think I am stupid? I know you know the truth now. Out with it. What is your real reason? He said, moving towards his desk. You want to finish your revenge, right? Sasaki frowned. Yes, he said, answering the Hokage. Danzo smirked again. Good, just as I thought. But tell me, what kind of destruction did you have in mind? Danzo said, sitting down, tenting his fingertips. Sasaki was taken aback by the bluntness. Danzo continued, you may be smart boy, but you're not smart enough. Danzo reached for a brush and marked something randomly before getting back to him. Sasaki was unnerved at how relaxed this man was. So free, talking about destruction and rebelling as if he had been planning one for years. Danzo turned to him. You know what is your problem? Danzo said. Sasaki remained silent. You don't think things through enough. What was your plan? Get in Konoha, then take the entire ninja force on single-handedly. You and I both know you're strong, but not that strong. Sasaki frowned once more, then ran his hand through his hair. Why are you telling me this? Danzo smirked. Because Lady has awoken and reclaimed her right as Hokage. So when I reach Konoha, I will step down. Sasaki quirked an eyebrow. Why? Danzo grinned. Like I said before, you need to think things through more. Danzo took a sip of tea. Think of it. If I step down and stay under the radar, not cause any trouble, move my pawn silently. He paused before turning glowing eyes to Sasaki. I can strike quickly, then gain the Hogue ship. Danzo said, grinning greedily. Permanently this time, Sasaki shivered. This man, he was truly power-hungry. Sasaki, however, feigned ignorance and spoke, pointing out a flaw in his plan. But to do that, Sununade would have to be put out of the picture. Danzo rose. That is why you are here, child. Why do you think you haven't been killed yet? Sasaki was silent. What is your plan? Danzo grinned. How exactly do you want to destroy Konoha? Sasaki was silent. Danzo continued. Instead of the physical part of it. Why not the spiritual part, the essence, the part that has stayed alive for so long, the part that compelled you, brother, to do what he had to do? Sasaki stared darkly at Danzo for a second. We must destroy the will of fire. Make the ninja obey us and fight for us, not some dumb will the third gave to them, and we make the people of the village completely dependent on us. In other words, we rule Konoha. Sasaki looked at Danzo. We, he asked. Danzo smirked. Help me, Sash, and I can wipe your slate clean and I can give you everything. Money, women, power, and someday when I am told, you could take up the Hogue ship and run the village however you please. Sasaki eyes glinted at the thought. Sasaki swallowed in anticipation. So what do I have to do? Danzo grinned. Now is opportune moment. Nar is dead thanks to the Akatsuki. Danzo winked as if he knew something. Could he possibly know that I? Sasaki thought for a second. The will of fire is already waning in some of the ninja ranks. Danzo continued. Nar was their hope. Now he's gone, so they will turn to Sununade. And when she is gone, they will have no one and thus turn to us. Sasaki got the hint. So we are going to dispose of her. Danzo nodded. That in fact will be your job. Sasaki was puzzled. That way, if you fail, I can sever my bonds to you and save my hide. You know how it is. We look for ourselves first. I did not plan this for an entire lifetime to have some brat with a shaky sword arm destroy it. Sasaki smirked. I killed my sensei and my older brother. The old windbag will be easy. Danzo shook his head. No, we have to do it quietly. Poison, maybe. Or even suffocating her in her sleep. Something that will look like an accident or natural. Something that cannot lead to you or me. So, I want you to lay low the first month. Well, bide our time. Get everyone used to your precincts. Then we will start with the operation. Sasaki nodded. Very well. Danzo grinned. I am glad you are on our side. Uchiha Sasaki. Konoha will be glad to have one of such a high pedigree back. Danzo then walked to the tent flap and looked around. Then he gave a whistle and the Anbu came in and took Sasaki. He is back to being a reinstated ninja, but you will still be under servant Sasaki, only at a more relaxed distance. Nar sneaked away. After he heard Danzo head for the tent flap, he quickly hid himself in the bushes, hiding himself in his chakra signature. Then he hurriedly ran back to Kakashi's camp. So Sasaki is in Leije with Danzo now. I am going to have to keep a tab on both of them, he thought to himself. Also, I better make sure does not have any mishaps. Nar thought as he headed through the trees. Hinata stood worriedly looking around. Fluffy, there you are, she exclaimed. Nar died a bit on the inside. Fluffy, why did you have to give me such an embarrassing name? Nar sighed and trotted over to her, thinking like a dog would, so he stuck his tongue out and panted while wagging his tail. Hinata smiled. Her smile looked better on her than the look of loss and sadness she once wore. Already Naruto could see that the fire in her was burning brighter, brighter than it was back when he was alive. Good. You need to be strong and have faith for what is to come. He looked around the camp at all the rookie nine at all his old friends. All of you do. There is a storm brewing. But Naruto hardened his gaze. But this time, I will not leave you. I will protect all of you. I need to be a better Nar than I was. Father, if you're up there, help guide me. I need to plan. I need to plan everything perfect. And right now, I need to figure out how to use jutsu with this body. They traveled all day. Naruto stuck next to Hinata the whole time. He ignored the glances from the other clan members, and so did Hinata. She proudly walked, her head held high, a look of challenge in her eyes. Neji sometimes came back and walked by them. He talked to her a few times and told her what the others were saying about her new pet. They say your father will make you get rid of it. Hinata rolled her eyes. It is Fluffy and I am keeping him regardless of what father says. Neji shook his head. Hinata, you of all people know what your father is like. Hinata nodded. I know, but he has to grant me this one thing at least. He owes me a lot. Neji shook his head once more. No, he's a kind of person who feels they don't owe anyone anything. Hinata, you better watch yourself. He might not take too kindly to this, even if you were his daughter. Neji then headed back to the front of the second branch of the Hyuga. Hinata looked down at him. We're going to stick together, right, Fluffy? Nar barked and wagged his tail. Hinata smiled to Nar. It may be a little degrading to act this way, but he did have to keep up the guise that he was a normal or somewhat normal dog for all intensive purposes, plus anything to make her happy and smile. Naruto sighed on the inside. Why is it that he would make a fool of himself or pain himself all to make others happy? Naruto flicked his ear in annoyance. It didn't matter right now. He had to worry about bigger things because a cheer rose up from the ninja as Konoha came into view. Everyone had filed through the main gate. The supply wagons and injured had already been taken to the hospital. Surprisingly, Sununade was standing with Shizune holding Tun and the two village elders were standing next to them. Danzo made his way to her then bowed respectfully. She nodded to him and took her Hokage hat from him that he held out in his arms. Then he spoke something in her ear. She looked taken aback but just nodded and Danzo and his guard left. Sakura walked up to her next. She looked at the ground and bit on her lower lip, unable to bring herself to look in her old mentor's eyes. Finally, she got the courage. Lady Sununade Nar, he stopped the war and saved all our lives. He was a true hero. That was all she said. Was silent for a moment. Then she looked away, her eyes cast downward. I understand. Then she reached out and pulled Sakura in a tight hug. The sensei and student split and looked at each other. You could see small ovals of moisture at the edges of eyes. She scanned the faces all gathered. We will serve a memorial for all of those fallen in 7 days' time. All of their names will be engraved on the hero's stone. The service will be held in the Chunin Stadium. Sununade looked around at them. I am proud of all of you. You all have fought so valiantly and bravely. Some of you have never had the experience of war, she said looking down sadly then back up. And some of you have dealt with that grim experience already. She drifted off as she remembered her younger days of war and bloodshed. She looked back up to all the faces looking to her for guidance and hope. She looked to Sakura next to her. Sakura squeezed her arm in comfort. Sununade smiled softly as her tears that had hovered in her eyes began to roll softly down her face. Every one of you should be proud of yourselves. And what have you accomplished? She spoke louder. This right now tells me that the will of fire which my grandfather, the third Hokage endowed in you is strong and will hopefully be burning brightly in all of your hearts for generations to come. All the ninja applauded her. Sununade stood silently as the applause washed over her. She felt both empowered and weak at the same time. Empowered because the hope and strength her ninja gave her. But then weak because there was one ninja that was not here. The one she held dearly to her heart more than some of the others. She continued to cry but wiped them away and shook hands with her warriors, giving them strength and wishing them luck. The ninja then started to break away and go wherever they needed to go. The rookie 9 got together at the edge and traveled down the newly finished back alleyway headed towards Ikuruka Ramen when just then Hiroshi Hyuga graced their precepts. He came around the corner, a few followers of the main branch behind him. Hinata. He yelled in a commanding voice. What is this I hear of you adopting some mongrel half-wild mutt? Nar moved closer to her side, bracing himself, not sure of what was going to happen next. Hinata, surprising everyone there, did something that wasn't her. Instead of looking down or away like she always did, she called upon an inner fire that had laid dormant within her all her life. Only now just mustering within her to challenge the absolute authority her father wields. She stuck her head up high, her body straightened, giving her a calm, strong look. Her eyes showed defiance and challenge, a light never before seen in her eyes. Before, she was afraid and timid. But now, those days were over with Fluffy at her side. She would show them how strong she really was. Ka saw this change in her, and his heart for a moment skipped a beat. There was nothing new about her. She glowed differently than before. He had never seen her in this way before, and he liked it. You hear falsely, father. I have adopted a great and magnificent beast, my new companion and friend. She said looking to Fluffy. He is not half-wild mutt. Whoever said that is mistaken and half-witted to think this creature next to me is a wild animal. Hiroshi's jaw dropped slightly, taken aback that she had spoken without taking her eyes from his and without a stutter. Then a look of certain authority took over. Hyuga Hinata, I am your father. I command you to get rid of that beast now. Hinata looked down her nose at her father. I am not a little girl anymore. Father, I can make my own decisions. You can't control me anymore, and I choose to keep him. You being my father does not change my mind. Hiroshi once again found himself dumbfounded. Within the same minute, he kept standing there, pointing towards the large mongrel beast. He slowly lowered his arm and fisted his hand until his knuckles turned white. Hiroshi was outraged at this. You will pay for your disobedience, girl. He spat as he swiftly approached her. Hinata gasped and started to back away, bringing an arm up to block the coming blow, but was too late. The sickening sound of skin slapping skin broke through the air, and Hinata was on the ground clutching a red-kneed cheek that undoubtedly would bruise. Before Hiroshi could hit her once more, a whitish blur came in between her Hiroshi and his disobedient daughter. The creature barked and snapped at him, its fur bristling. Hiroshi smirked and struck. The creature whimpered and fell to the ground in a heap. Hiroshi laughed at its pathetic form. Hiroshi looked down at his miserable excuse for a daughter. She stood behind the form of her failed protector, her hand clutching her jaw. She looked up to Hiroshi. You must choose my daughter, he said, glaring down at her. This pathetic beast and a life disowned from the Hauger. Kill this beast right here and now and claim your right to be my heir. Hinata sat confused. Then a certain malice. A cold hate filled her eyes. An emotion that shocked even him, something he had never seen before. Hinata calmly stood up. I would rather die with this beast and no name than to be your caged heir. She slowly got up. The mud moaned and turned his head towards her. Hinata spoke once more. Mother was right to tell me to get away as soon as I can. How come I couldn't see until now? Why did it take a war and the loss of someone dear to me to see this? Hinata said softly. Hinata looked back up at her father, the one she had always tried to impress, the one she had trusted and adored, her only living parent. Because her mother. You want to know why mother killed herself after Shinobi was born? Everyone gasped. Few knew about how the lady of the Hyuga clan had died. Most thought it was from something that happened during childbirth, but she had suffered for 3 years before succumbing to it. Even those in the main branch did not know the secret of how the mistress had died. Here she has had it covered all these years. But brave Hinata spoke the truth unveiled by the words that slipped from her tongue. Here she was shocked once more that she would speak of such things. Plus, he had always wondered how his wife, whom he admittedly treated more like an exotic bird, had escaped from her cage. Hinata then moved closer to her father because she would have rather been dead to spend another second with you. She hissed the last part with venom. She hated you, father. And it only took me until now to realize that I hate you as well. She adjusted her shoulder and spoke. I sever my bonds with you. She turned away from him. Make hen your little singing bird. 'Cause this one is not singing for you anymore. Hinata spat the last part out, emphasizing it. Hiroshi twinged slightly. Then his face started to turn an angry purple as he contained the fury within him. Instead of hitting her once more, he jutted a finger at her. You miserable wench. I give you everything you ever wanted, and this is how you pay me. Fine then, live on the streets. Be without a name. If you really detest me that much, just leave. We'll see how far you survive without the Haug name. Before Hinata could say anything more, a growling filled the air. A deep, low, ferocious growling that sent chills down everyone's spine as the animal at Hinata's feet staggered up and stood. Then it looked up at Hiroshi and bared its fangs as much as it could. Its fur stood straight as an arrow. Hiroshi gasped. The animal's eyes were in complete fiery fury as though it was looking into his very soul. On top of that, he was scared at the fact that it stood when he knew it shouldn't have. Hai backed away. The animal stepped towards him staggeringly. It continued to growl at him, looking ready to pounce. The pure fear the beast caused from its looks and growls and the fact that it had stood after such a blow. It followed Hiroshi with its eyes, and the beast made one motion to Hiroshi. No one saw. It tilted its head to the side and winked. Hiroshi thought he had lost his mind for a moment because this couldn't have happened. But the beast jumped and barked menacingly enough to make him Hiroshi Hyuga jump and scuttle over to his followers. He turned and said, You are not allowed on Hyuga grounds until you get rid of that beast and are ready to apologize. Then scampered away like a dog with his tail in between his legs. Hinata smirked, then twirled and jumped around. I'm free. Finally free. I never have to sit through a stupid clan meeting or attend those boring old parties my father throws. She then stopped and looked at Fluffy and jumped to sit on her knees in the street beside him. I can't believe what you did, Fluffy. You were amazing. His aim must have been off for you to be able to stand still. You stood and fought for me. You're the best guard dog I know. She hugged him and kissed his forehead. Then laughed and giggled as Fluffy barked and wagged his tail and nudged his nose to her cheek in affection. It's okay, boy. The scars that really matter are now healed. Fluffy barked once more. Hinata turned to the rest who were stunned. They had did nothing throughout the entire ordeal, not because they didn't want to, but for fear of getting their clans in trouble if they did. Come on guys, let's go to Ikiruka Ramen. She said happily and excitedly, then ran off, giggling with Fluffy bounding at her heels, barking for joy as well. They all looked at each other. Is it me? Ka started and Sakura finished. Or is it she is becoming like Nar? All of them looked at each other. Maybe that Fluffy has something to do with it. Ka said. Sakura snorted. Come on, it's just an animal. It has nothing to do with Nar, she said and started walking after Hinata. Last one there pays, she yelled, then booked off at a dead run that got everyone into high gear. Hinata was already slurping her way into a bowl with Fluffy at her side lapping up ramen as well. Hinata yelled. Dogs are not supposed to have ramen. It's bad for them. Hinata looked down. Oh, but he earned it. Plus, one bowl won't hurt. Ka shook his head. If you really want to keep him, you are going to have to learn how to take care of such a high moddiness animal. You have to feed him and comb him, give him baths, have vet checkups, brush his teeth, deworm him, all this stuff. And what are you going to do when you go on missions? Hinata looked down sadly. I thought I was going to take him with. He can do a lot of stuff. She trailed away, then turned to him, begging with her eyes. You have seen for yourself, Ka, she exclaimed. He's a very intelligent animal and strong and very protective of me. Ka shook his head. He sat down. Do you know how much time and effort it takes to train a dog like Akamaru and our clan's dogs? It takes a lifetime. You start from a pup and bond with him becoming like littermates. You can't just adopt any old dog and take him in. It has taken generations of breeding to finally get dogs that can use some chakra from their owners like me and Akamaru. You have to be able to give him chakra to fight and you have to be competitible. Hinata looked away and sighed. All of them said nothing. Then Ayame, the granddaughter of the owner, said, wiping her forehead. Hey, where is Nar? He usually has 10 bowls by now. All of them said nothing for a few moments. Then Sakura said, Nar is eating ramen with the third Hokage and all the others who have left this world. Ayame's jaw dropped. She wiped away tears, then went into the back for a few moments. Her and her grandfather walked to the counter. He yelled out to the other helpers to take a break. When all had left, he turned to them, his face no longer smiling. He sat heavily against the counter. So Naruto's recklessness has truly caught up with him. Sakura shook her head. No, he was a hero. He took his recklessness and turned it into a trump card to save us all. Shikamaru nodded. Yeah, without his sacrifice, we would not be here. We would probably be all dead or still at war. The man smirked. Like father, like son, he said under his breath that got everyone's attention, even Fluffy beneath the stool. Flicked his ears forward. He looked confused. Wait, you knew Naruto's father? The man nodded. Yes, even you do. Everyone does. Although you might not have known his mother, Uzumaki Kusha. The man smiled at the mention, seeming to go back in memories. Came here as a wee little girl. Her hair was like fire, and so was her attitude. She let no one mess around with her. He said, chuckling, taking on people twice her size or people who outnumbered her. She had no fear. He grinned. But she had a soft side. She didn't like seeing those who could not defend themselves get picked on. He turned to them. I bet you can guess which parent Nar took after. Sakura and the others looked at each other. How come we never heard of any of this? The Mon's face darkened. There was a decree by the third. No one supposed to know of Naruto's lineage. If they knew, the boy would have had kidnapping attempts every night. And on top of the Uzumaki lineage, he had another very important bloodline. Everyone squished together more. What was Naruto's lineage? The man scratched his neck. Well, since he's in the hereafter, I can say Naruto has two great bloodlines in his tree. The infamous Uzumaki clan, masters of Fuonjutsu from the whirlpool, he said, pointing to a map nearby. All of them, most of them were wiped out though in the Second War. He added, Kusha was one of the few survivors. You see, Uzumaki had long lifespans. They could easily live into the hundreds and still be able to walk, talk, and do everything. And they had a huge chakra supply equal only be spirits and demons. He paused. Then there's his father. The man paused, then turned to a drawer beside him. He took out a box wrapped in fabric. He blew dust form it and unwrapped it. Slowly he pulled out what looked to be a picture frame. The people who stood in it smiling were a man and a woman. One looked exactly as the man had described, wild red hair and smiling a very familiar smile. She rested a hand on a pregnant belly. The man standing next to her was also equally familiar. He had blonde hair and neat spikes, nice angled features with a jutting handsome shin. His skin was smooth and tan and he had very fine bright blue eyes that sparkled. The man was familiar because he was Namaka's Minato, the fourth Hokage, aka the Yellow Flash. There was a gasp throughout the group. He was the fourth Hokage's son. The man nodded. Yep. Namakaze, I guess, is somehow related far up the family tree, to the Senju clan, which is the first Hokage. And ironically, his younger brother, the second Hokage, had a wife who was also the holder of the Ninetails. She was Uzumaki as well. When she was old, they brought Kusha to seal the Ninetales in, you see, for controlling and sealing the great-tailed beasts. The younger the better. The man waved his hand and placed the picture back in the drawer. Then after that is history. Kusha was Minato's protector in academy. The boy was Shiano. They giggled and shook heads, not being able to see the fourth Hokage being like that. Well, they ended up staying together after that as friends. The man spoke, continuing the story. Then one day she got kidnapped and he tracked them down and saved her. They declared their love for each other. She taught him all her secrets of Fu and Jutsu. He became Hokage. They got married. Then a second later, she was pregnant. Boy, that man was so happy when he heard he was going to be a father. Even had his sensei named the kid who knew he would be eating ramen when he thought of it. The man chuckled. All of them stared dumbfoundedly. I never knew any of this about Nar. Then what happened on the day of the attack? Shikamaru said. The man sighed. Kusha went into labor. It's hard for holders. I guess something about the seal makes being pregnant even tougher. On top of being pregnant for another month than usual, Sakura shook her head in dismay. You mean her term was 10 months instead of 9? He nodded. Yeah. Anyway, they went to a secluded place in case anything went wrong, and I am guessing it did. Even I don't know what happened it. The third kept the secret to his grave. All I know is the Kobe got out and Minato gave his life up to seal the Kobe in Nar. The man stopped shaking his head. Then had the third kept Naruto's lineage and everything a secret to protect him until he was ready for the truth. The man finished with a heavy sigh. Fluffy rested his head on his paws inside as well. Ka rose, placing money on the table. Well, I guess now we know who knew Nar had such a badass history and lineage. I mean, would he have been different if the Kobe had not escaped? Would we all have been friends still? Or would he be a snooty prick because of who his father is? The man shook his head. No, Kasha would have saw to that. Anyway, you shouldn't think of what could have been. You should think on what has been and what will be. He said as he collected their bowls and their money. They all left and headed out to their homes. Sakura had asked if Hinata wanted to stay over, but Hinata told her she would find a hotel for the night. She needed to be alone for a bit. She sighed and walked next to Fluffy in silence. Let's go to the park, she said and headed in the direction. Naruto looked up to see storm clouds rolling in. This is not good, he thought to himself. Hinata pulled her jacket closer around her. The wind had picked up. Maybe I should go get a hotel room now, she thought, then realized something terrible. Oh no, I don't have my money with me. It's in my baggage, which is in my rolled up in my tent bag, which is in the Hyuga compound now, she thought dryly. Instead, Hinata sat down on a cold stone park bench. It was freezing. She shivered. Fluffy whined and scooted closer to her. She was glad for the warmth his fur gave and buried her numb fingers in his fur, relishing in the burning feeling from her nerves being awoken once more. It got darker and colder, and soon it started to rain. She got up and hurried to the tunnel of a stone bridge. She huddled next to the wall, curling herself in a ball. Her head throbbed, and she felt chilled to the bone. Fluffy curled himself as tight as he could next to her, trying to warm her, but she still felt cold and wet. Soon, she felt dizzy and weak. She crumpled all the way to the ground and closed her eyes and went into a fevered sleep. Nar saw Hinata close her eyes as her body convulsed into shivers. Her skin was a sickly pale blue. Naro swore and tried to shake her awake, but to no avail. So, he quickly eased himself down and shifted Hennis's limp form onto his back, balancing it. He staggered under the weight at first, but he knew he had to get her to warmth and safety going through the mental map. In his head, he knew Ka's clan was the closest. Naruto took off and went as fast as he dared to. Rain pelted his fur, drenching him, but his second layer of fur kept him warm and surprisingly dry in a way. Finally, he could see the clan gates ahead. He didn't see a sentry or guard, and he couldn't really knock. So, he did the only thing he thought of doing. He held for help. He threw his head back and tried to convey that something was wrong and he needed immediate help to come to him. It must have worked cause suddenly he heard the sound of 3 dogs barking and soon voices the door opened and a female with brown hair and eyes with the red painted cheeks stepped outside. She gasped and rushed to Hinata. Naruto eased her down. The female caught her. The 3 dogs he heard earlier growled at him, but the women barked and said, enough. He is our guest. No dog is to touch him. They whined and laid their ears back in submission and backed away. She looked at him. Dog, follow. He nodded and followed her as she rushed inside. 4 other figures streaked across the yard. It was Ka and Akamaru, followed by a woman with wild hair and a dog wearing an eye patch. Hannah, what is it? Ka said then gaped. What happened? Hannah shrugged. The dog howled for help. I heard him and came. Ka quirked an eyebrow. How did you know it was him and some other dog in out pens who dropped a bone? She shrugged once more. He sounded different, desperate, urgent. He had a sort of plea in his voice. Totally different from any of our dogs. Ka nodded. Fine, but we have to bring her in. She's got a fever, no doubt. He turned. Is that okay, mother? Some nodded. But what of her mutt? Then to Naruto's surprise, her dog stepped up and said, I'll take him to a place where none of the others will mess with him. The young ones won't always pick fights with strangers. Dog soon nodded once more. Very well, Kurumaru. The large dog stepped up to him. He studied him with one eye. He made small noises, but Nar understood them. You follow me. Naru looked at him and nodded. Kurumaru led him out of the rain to a small place that looked like a storage shed. He opened the door easily. Naruto watched how he did so that he would be able to open doors later, then stepped inside. There was a small bed on the floor. Kurumaru motioned to him. You rest here, he said once more using the strange animal tongue. Naruto turned to him. What of Hinata? When will I see her again? Kuromaru seemed to jump in surprise. What the? How can Kuromaru stared at him? You are speaking at my level of expertise. Most dogs I know can say simple words. Me, I, we, pack, food, attack, dodge, bed, and cat, he said, naming examples. Naruto shrugged. I am not a dog. My father was a wolf and my mother was a fox. Kuromaru looked him up and down then said, keep that fox part to yourself. If others heard, they will try and kill you. We detest foxes even if you half-breed. Naruto flicked an ear. My name is Fluffy. Kurumaru barked in a moose. What name? No. What is name you mother gave, not the human one given? Nar shrugged. I don't remember. Kuromaru shook his head. Then looked at I am in disdain. You are the strangest canine I ever did see. Half wolf, half fox, no true name. And to top it off has intelligence compared to mine. Incredible. Even my own pups didn't get that. Kuromaru paused. I mean, look at Akamaru. He only cares of food. I don't want to mention the others. It's too disgraceful. He shook his head. Naru quirked an ear. You still didn't answer my question. Kurumaru shot his head up. Right. Sorry. Lost I get sometimes. Human Hinata will be given a bath and food, then a rest. In morning, maybe you can see her. Naruto nodded. Thank you, Kuromaru. The dog sniffed at him. You sure you are canine? Naruto shrugged and went to the pillow. One more thing, Kuromaru. Kuromaru looked at him. Yes. How is it you speak so the humans can understand you? Kuromaru swelled his chest in pride. It took a lot of work, but find I did a way to speak to me, human. Naruto looked at him. Is it teachable? Kuromaru looked shocked once more. He stepped closer to him. Why? To what end would be of use to speak to human for you? Naruto stood because I want to help Hinata. I am all she has now. I need to be able to speak to her because he trailed off then remembered Sasaki. Lightning struck outside, the sky shaking as if a god had pounded his fists upon it. Kuromaru jumped at the sound. Naruto spoke to the startled Kuromaru. A bigger storm is coming and this storm is like nothing Konoha has ever seen. Kuromaru just stared at him. Tell you I will show you I can. But you alone can learn on own way. Smart to me you seem. I believe you can figure out. Kuromaru walked to the door then turned back to him. Stay here you will and with humans to train you. Then storm you will survive through. Then Kuromaru walked out and left Nar alone to hear the sound of rain falling heavily against the roof. Naruto woke up the next morning and yawned. He stretched and shook himself awake as he pushed open the door to the outside world. As he looked outside, he saw rain puddles scattered about. He turned his head and listened for noise. Everything was as it should be. Naruto sighed and trotted over to the main house. He found a sliding door and pushed it open. He then began to sniff the air, trying to pick up on Hinata's scent. It was weird going through someone else's home, but he couldn't help it. He had to find Hinata. He smelled a faint scent of her usual lily smell and followed his nose to her. He saw no one as he traveled through the house once more. He came to a sliding door. He opened it up and saw Hinata on a futon bed. She had a wet towel wrapped over her forehead and the female from last night. Hana he thought her name was sitting next to her. Hana's 3 dogs were nowhere to be seen. Hinata's coughing brought Naruto to attention. He walked over to her. Hana saw him then. Oh, good boy. You found your master. She then patted his head gruffly. He sat down and looked at Hinata as she had more color to her and she looked more at peace, but he could sense fever running through her. He nuzzled her arm, giving her comfort, hoping she would feel him there and know someone was still there for her. Hana then stood and walked over to him. Wow, I can't believe it. Ka was right. A wolf fox. How interesting, she said to herself as she looked him over. Nar rolled his eyes. Really? Am I that interesting? Then he heard a weak voice croak out. Fluffy. Naruto and Hana both looked to awaken Hinata. Hana was wetting a towel and placing it on her head, saying that she should rest. But Hinata instead brought her arm up and put it around his neck. You saved me. Good boy. Then she fell back into her sleep. Naruto sighed and laid down. When his belly growled, he looked up to Hana. She stared at him a bit. Then she must have put two and two together. Oh, silly me. Of course you're hungry. She left for a bit, then came back holding a metal dog bowl. She placed it in front of him. Naruto stared at it. What was in that bowl might have been a living creature at one time, but now it was canned and mashed up beyond recognition. Nar sniffed it. It smelled weird. Then he hesitantly took a small bite because he knew he had to seem like a dog. Even though the human in him protested, he swallowed what little he got in his mouth and shivered slightly. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't good either. It was like tofu. It has all the nutrients, but no real taste to it. Naruto sighed but kept eating it bit by bit until she left. Then he stopped and pushed the dish away. Now he left Hinata for a bit to go find water to wash his mouth out. He followed the rooms of the house feeling as though he was in a maze. Naruto, who was used to his one-bedroom apartment, was completely astounded by how much space these people had, and some rooms were completely barren of anything. It was such a waste. Did they really need that much? Then he heard a scratching and barking. Suddenly, 4 dogs had come running up to him. They were not mean or hostile. They seemed to say the same thing over and over. New dog, let's play. Nar, who had never really played before, not even as a human. Kids never wanted to play with him, so he spent most of his childhood days alone. Now, these 4 strange dogs wanted to play with him. Suddenly, one barked loudly and bent his front, so his rear stuck in the air. His tongue led out of his mouth and his tail wagged happily. He stayed like that as if waiting for something. Nar looked at them confused. The dogs tilted their heads and wed. Another one, a female this time did it. Nar ended up backing away and trotting away from them. They just stared after him for a second, then ran off with each other. Soon watched the new animal with much interest. Ever since it woke up, she followed it around at a distance. This was quite a peculiar animal. It was guarded in its posture, always looking and watching as though it was trying to figure something out. It seemed unsure of itself, which was only natural in a new place. But when the animal backed away from the inclination of playing, which any dog would do, even Kuromaru, this surprised her to no end. Instead, the animal just went around the house, opening doors and looking at things. Once it had made a swing through all the first-floor rooms, he must have decided that was enough and trotted back to his master's side. Soon then thought it was a very loyal and obedient animal. But when Ka had told her last night Hinata had found the dog only few days ago, it was just downright unnatural. No dog would be that guarding and loyal after a day or two. Soon to say the least was just puzzled. She decided to take a closer look at this animal. She walked into the room where Hinata slept. The dog looked up at her watching her with eerily striking blue eyes that held much composure and intelligence. It seemed to ask, "Who are you?" When he his head, "Well, Fluffy, how are you today?" Hinata seems to be getting better. A couple more hours and she might have hypothermia. You saved her life. You're well trained. Sun said it was unnerving the way he had watched her or listened to her every word as if he understood them. But even more shocking was the fact he nodded his head as if to say, "Yes, I am." So muled her thoughts about for a bit, then said, "Fluffy, come." The dog stood up and came to her. Sit. He sat. Speak. He barked. Roll over. He did. So, the usual moves anyone teaches their dog. Then she smirked, thinking she would confuse the dog with a few commands of an Inazaka dog. Jump and spin on the front. After a moment's hesitation, she thought she had the dog, but the dog looked like he was concentrating. Then, he easily jumped into the air, landed on his front paws, holding its back legs in the air. He balanced and spun once around on its front paws. Soon stared, shocked it had done it so gracefully and balanced. It seemed to act as though it was a veteran dog of hers. She closed her mouth, jump and spin on backs. He did so with the same fluid grace. Now she was astounded. She yelled gruffly, "Kaya, get in here." Ka then rushed in. "What is it, Ma?" he said somewhat sleepily. He wore his usual gray shirt and black pants, his face already painted. She turned to her son. "Give this dog a command," she said, pointing to it. Kba stared at her, then looked down at it. Backward flip. The dog, after a little consideration, braced himself, then from a standing position, flipped backwards and landed on its feet. A light was in its eyes as if to say, "Is that the best you can do?" Soon grinned. This dog was very interesting. "Ka, I am going to go test this dog." "Okay. If anyone needs anything, tell them. I'll get to it later. This dog is more important right now." Ka nodded. "Okay. What about Hinata?" Soon looked over at her. "Keep taking care of her. The poor girl. What kind of father would do that?" "I do not know. She can stay with us for a bit." Ka nodded and soon turned to the dog. "Okay, Fluffy, follow me." Nar followed the Inazaka clan leader to an empty courtyard behind the main house. There was some sort of obstacle course built there. First, there was a 12 high wall, followed by a set of various ladders, then a wide trench filled with water. Next 3 hoops one had to jump through to get to the other side of that, which was 10 posts sticking up out of the ground from a giant hole in the ground that had a net strung across. So if a dog or person did miss a post, they would not fall and break something or die, which would be bad. Soon turned to the dog. Go to that line. The dog went to the line she pointed to. Stay until I blow this whistle. When the dog was situated, instead of sitting or looking around like any other dog would, it stood braced ready for her. Watching her from the corner of its eye, she blew the whistle. It took off like a speeding horse. It shot up from the ground and leapt most of the wall. Then it propelled itself the last length by pushing its body off the wall, almost seeming to run on it. It landed on the very top. It studied the sets of ladders for a few seconds. Each ladder was set up a different way. Some led out to the middle of nothing, and the dog would have to back up and find a new destination. But this animal was different. It almost instantly found the fastest and correct route. He dashed onto the next obstacle, which was a 9-featuring wide trench. The dog seemed to fly across the surface of the water. But if Soon would have looked closer near the mid-flight of his jump, she would have noticed the dog placing all fours on the surface of the water for a millisecond before using the added leverage to jump the full length. Then next was the posts. The dog fluidly jumped to each one. The posts were only as wide as a dinner plate. But the way the dog moved with such balance and precision, it seemed to run across the very air in the fastest record she had ever did see, which was about 12 seconds. Soon got to see what this dog knew. And boy did it know a lot. So the dog was fast and had a good sense of balance as well as showing perfect stamina. But was it able to figure out problems, think on its feet without commands? Was it able to take risks? These were the things that really mattered. So she moved on the next test, the intelligence test. It was a surprisingly simple test to humans. It was actually a device given to us when we were babies. You had these figures and you had to put them in the correct space. Well, this was the exact same thing, only when the dog did it. It got treats. And this dog was second to none. The first stage was 3 shapes. Then it went to 4, 6, 8, all the way to 32 different shapes. A lot of them look very similar, but once again, this dog astounded her. It got each one correct. Next, she added color into the factor. You had to match the correct shape and color. And just as before, he did it right. And in both tests, the dog ignored the treats. It didn't even look for them. He just put the correct shapes in and moved on to the next, ignoring the treats that fell out of the opening in the bottom. Then she went to a whole level greater. She tied the dog up, then put a large lock on it that could be only opened with a key. She then put 3 keys out. All of them you could easily tell from each other, and you could easily tell which key was supposed to go into the right lock due to the fact it had to be a moon-shaped key. The dog figured out what it had to do and picked the right key and broke itself free. Soon was starting to think of bringing Shikamaru Nar in to think up of something to test the beast because she had nothing more for intelligence. She moved on to thinking on its feet. First, she put the standard protection the dog would need. Then headed out to gather up some other dogs. When Sun left Naruto's side, holy hell, what does this woman want from me? Okay, the obstacle course was challenging. I didn't think I was going to make it that one time. I am doing all this stuff on the fly. Who knew my luck would be that good? At least I have gotten used to this body. I just don't know how to do other things, and these tests are simple and kind of fun. Naruto's nose brought him back to reality. He smelled 10 dogs. They weren't the usual large, sturdy Inazaka dogs. These were the cast-offs. Only one of 2 from each litter was paired with a ninja. These dogs mostly were used either for breeding or training the real Inazaka familiars. So all in all, they weren't that skilled. Any Inazaka dog could fight them easily. Once she had 10 good sound dogs, ones that would listen to her. She put protection on them. She then placed Fluffy in the middle of the field and had the 10 dogs sit in equal spacing around Fluffy. Then she got out of the way and gave the command to attack. The 10 dogs, thinking like Pack, thought they would win. 10 to 1 odds was easy enough. Even Soon thought this dog would not be able to do anything. The dog did something she never saw before. Instead of rushing at them or trying to get away or cowering in the I give up stance, the dog stood calm, composed, waiting for them. Then it tensed its body and sprung into action as the first dog met him. He dodged the first set of teeth and flew through the air, landing in front of the 10 dog pile up. He then waited until they sorted themselves out. The dogs rushed him in a line, a few were faster than the rest. Fluffy was even faster. He dodged, got underneath their heads and sunk his teeth into the fur on their necks and flipped them onto the earth using a power she couldn't believe he had. 3 dogs wear out. The others backed up momentarily until a new leader shifted through the ranks. He was a big and tough dog, well muscular and large. Fluffy just waited for him. The last of the dogs made a V. As they charged him, this time Fluffy ran out to intercept them as well. At the last second, he put his head down and hit the earth and used his body as a weapon to slide beneath the lead dog's legs and trip him. It worked all too well. The sounds of barks in alarm and whining came from the pile as dogs' legs got entwined with one another and they bit and lunged at anything that came near them in their moment of panic. Fluffy just simply picked himself off, shook the dust from his fur, and patted over to her. A challenge in his eyes once again saying, "Is that the best you go?" It was too easy. Soon then did something that was only tested once in a great while. The burning building exercise. She inside placed a doll that looked like a human baby. She then made Fluffy sniff it and get the scent in his head. She then placed the baby inside a cheap housing building on the far end of the compound. It was small, only 2 stories, 4 rooms on each floor. They never used it for anything other than this purpose. She made Fluffy sit outside as she had the building set on fire. She then motioned for the dog to go after the doll. Fluffy immediately bounded for a dead blackened tree that still managed to stand after catching fire so many times. He bounded up the trunk into a branch that led to a second-story window. He jumped through it, glass and all. Nar landed on the wood floor already. He could feel the heat of the fire downstairs, but he shook himself and sorted through the smoke for the smell of the doll. He searched for it. It was in none of the empty rooms upstairs, so he went downstairs. He slid past the fire that was licking the sides of the stairwell and searched the bottom half of the house. Nar kept his head low to where the good air was, away from the smoke. Then he found the strongest scent of the doll right beneath him. He looked carefully to see that some had eased open a floorboard and had placed the doll in. Naruto worked a claw in to pop open the floorboard. It was tedious work. It required balance and skill to lift the jammed board using claws, but finally the board came out with a pop. Naruto gently picked up the doll, which was wrapped in a swaddled blanket. He looked around for the nearest exit. The fire had spread by now. The flames crawled up the stairs and was licking the edges of the ceiling. The very air scorched his lungs when he breathed. Nar put his head low and danced his way through the flames. They leapt all around them. The heat from them hurt his eyes and sensitive nose, but he moved forward knowing if this were a real child, this would be life or death situation. Nar saw the door up ahead. He momentarily paused, which was a good thing because some bracing fell from ceiling just in front of him. Nar backed slightly, then braced his legs and jumped over the mound of burning derbies. He landed on the other side. Now it was the door. The doorknob had melted and was a glowing red. Nar was no fool to even think of getting near it. Instead, he spun around and kicked the door with his back paws with all his might. It was tiring. Naruto felt he was being roasted alive, but he had to press on. A few more good hard kicks and the door buckled. He broke through and ran knowing that when that new air got to the fire, there would be a backlash as the flames would burst in size. Nar ran all the way until he got to some. Then he gently set the doll down. He was tired and hot. He knew parts of his fur singed. He smelled of fire and burned hair. But more than that, he was proud because he could see the admiration and shock in his eyes. She knelt and picked up the doll and looked at it. Not a mark on it. She smirked and gently placed a hand on his shoulder. Dog, I don't know where you from or how, but you are special. That Hinata is lucky to have you. She then stood up. Someone stop the fire and escort this dog to Hana. Shall look after him. Nar followed one of the Inazaka back to the main house. Then Hana saw him and gasped. Soon walked in after him. Mother, you didn't. She exclaimed. Soon nodded. I had to right now. This dog, this Fluffy is good enough to be one of our own familiars. He was a little slow at the last exercise, but he passed. Hana stood her mouth gaping. Soon smirked, then added gruffly, well, stop staring and help the poor creature. He's singed, dirty, and tired. Hana nodded and took him away to get a bath, a medical exam, and finally some real food, a steak. Then it was off to bed, curled up beside Hinata. The next day, Hinata's fever broke. She was able to regain much of her strength and was even going for a walk with Ka and Fluffy by sunset. She thanked the Inazaka household profusely before stopped her and said it was Fluffy she should thank. Hinata then said she would be out as soon as possible, but soon would have none of it. So stood affirmative. You and Fluffy are staying here. You have no clan and nowhere to go, and I dare not trust you on the streets without Fluffy. Beside, how are you going to take care of such a magnificent beat like that while you're homeless? Hinata nodded knowing Soon was right. But I have to earn my keep. She exclaimed and Soon nodded. You will when you go on missions, half of your earnings will go to us for boarding of you and Fluffy. But first, I would have Kara you to get used to fighting with such a skilled animal. So the next 2 days she learned the basics. Since both her and Fluffy were committed and eager, they flew through the quizzes and classes, both of them excelling in what their mentor taught them. Hinata would work with Ka sometimes separate, learning how to treat dog wounds and care from Ka and Hana, while Naruto snuck off with Kurumaru to learn a few basics of speech. Nar trained with Hinata by day, then snuck out and trained as well at night. He knew he had a month at least to relearn how to do stuff in this new body. First, it was how to do jutsus that required hand gestures. But from what Naruto learned, gestures were universal. If a ninja lost a hand or finger, they could change the way they did that sign as long as there was a separate gesture for each sign. You could have jutsu. Nar did his gestures with his ears. They were fluid and flexible, and he was able to move them in 12 different ways to make a gesture for each of the signs. Then he moved on to applying chakra. First, he started out with a jutsu. He knew the best multi-shadow clone jutsu. At first, he was only able to summon a half-form blob. But after more practice and concentration, he was able to be back to his usual standards. Once he made a 100 perfect clones, he called it good. Next, he set out for chakra control again. First placing a paw on a leaf and splitting it with chakra. Then, he testy walked across water. Once he mastered each step again, this time it took a matter of hours instead of days. He moved on to tree climbing. Soon in one night, he had relearned how to do all of his Jonin rank and Academy ranked jutsu and abilities. The next night in worked on his Renin, knowing he couldn't use his paw, he thought long and hard of what to do. He thought of his tail, but it was a no-go. Then he ended up thinking back to a cartoon Hinata watched in the morning before anyone was awake, about little creatures that battled other creatures. One of them was a cat that concentrated a sphere in its jaws. Looking a lot like Risen, Naruto tried and discovered it would work with practice. Lots and lots of practice. Naruto once again snuck out and ran in the shadows. He quickly climbed a wall and headed towards a practice field. Usually, he practiced in the Inazaka field, but tonight he would need more space, so he headed to training ground 7. He trotted peacefully through the night, his canine eyes seeing everything. His nose warned him if someone was coming or not. He scattered across leaves and stuck to the walls as though he was a shadow himself. No one would think anything of him running the streets, but still one had to be wary. Once he entered the practice field, he made sure no one was around and made several clones. Thus, he began to train to create a Rin again. It took a lot of patience, but with this many clones, he was making his way rapidly through it. By midnight, he had one. Next, he had to do it while moving. Then, he did it while walking across water. Naruto was happy the Kyuubi's chakra did not mess with his chakra flow anymore. So, thus, it was almost 100 times better at chakra control. Even Sakura would have to concentrate for this control. Next, Naruto sat and started to think of other jutsu besides the ones he knew. Thus, Naruto began to create his own jutsu. The next 2 nights, he thought, tested and trained many ideas, some not working, but others becoming complete success. That night, Naruto returned to the compound around 1 o'clock in the morning. A trot in his step, he had just finalized 3 new jutsu tonight. The first was Wind Art Wolf Fang no Jutsu, where he created large wolves that sprang out from mouth forming with chakra and attacked the target. He could make several of them or one of them. It was both offensive and defensive to a certain degree, but only worked close to mid-range. The next was Wind Art, Claw of the Wolf, where he concentrated chakra in his paws and materialized it to form wicked sharp claws of wind chakra like his wind resin, but without the drastic after effects, i.e. nerve damage. Then there was his form of an ultimate defense like the Hyuga and their chakra shield. He had one as well. But instead of spinning in place, he just constantly projected his chakra, forming a kind of armor in the shape of a wolf. He could extend this and disengage some parts at will. He knew this would come in handy. Yes, Naruto was happy and he already had several ideas to what next to try. The next morning, he awoke to find Hinata was already up. He followed her scent and found her not in her training gear, but a simple black gown. And not just she, everyone was in one. Neither her nor Ka wore their headbands. Naruto whined to get her attention. She looked down, a sadness in her eyes. Fluffy, we are going to the memorial. We must be respectful. I am sorry. I do not think we shall train today. Sorry, boy. Then she ruffled his fur. Nar sighed inwardly. Then followed them out one by one as they headed towards the stadium where Naruto defeated Neji in the Chunin exams. It was also the place where there was a brutal attack on the village. Memories resurfaced strongly in his head as he padded silently next to Hinata. That's when he caught scent of trouble. He growled lowly and curled defensively around Hinata, placing his body in between her and what was coming, the entire main Hyunga branch. With Hiroshi as lead, and next to him with a plain face was little Hinobi dressed in what was marked Clan Iris gown. Hinata placed a hand on his back. It's okay, Fluffy. I don't care. Besides, he dare not offend me now. He's in front of the other clan heads. Naruto barked in answer, but still watched Hiroshi. He looked over and saw her and him. A small twinge of anger crossed his face, but he turned his head defiantly away, ignoring their presence altogether. Nar and the rest made their way in him. Hinata and Ka headed toward their places with the others of the Rookie 9 force. Hinata sat next to Neji. How's it going? She whispered. Neji answered just as silently. He is still waiting for you to show up at the doors. He thinks you'll fail and come crawling back to him and he'll be able to gloat over you. Hinata shook her head. Not going to happen. I am staying with the Inazakas. Neji nodded. So I smell cousin and he smirking. Hinata elbowed him. Then all was silent as Sununade took to the small stage erected. Behind her was 58 pictures with lanterns burning by them. Each one for each Konoha ninja that died in battle. And the one exactly in the middle was Naruto's. Even in that picture frame, you could easily see his bright smile and twinkling eyes from the back of the room. All the others looked dull in comparison. Hinata's breath caught in her throat. It seemed as though Naruto was staring right at her as if saying, "What's going on? Why are you holding a funeral service? I'm not dead." She quickly covered her mouth to stop the sob. She thought she had it under control, but the emotions came back with a menace. Just before she felt swept away by them, a warm sensation came from her leg. She looked down. Fluffy was there with a paw, and his eyes instantly captivated hers, holding them and calming her emotions instantly. The strong calm in those eyes were exactly what she needed to be able to live through this service. Hinata snaked a hand down and held that paw as well. Then she smiled softly through the drying tears. It's okay. I get it. I stay strong for you and you stay strong for me. Hinata thought it was weird, but she could have sworn that Fluffy smirked, then nodded as if he understood. But maybe too many tears in her eyes corrupted her vision. Went on about how great a ninja was, and how they sometimes have to pay the ultimate sacrifice. There was then a pause of silence for those who were being honored. Then she went on to talk about how each ninja made Konoha what it was, safe and free, and going on about that. It was a beautiful speech that sent chills down Hinata's spine just listening to the words of wisdom. They felt as though they were being spoken from the bottom of Sununade's heart, pouring out of her very soul. Hinata realized they were. Naruto was one of the nearest and dearest to her. She also knew that Swan had also lost so many other loved ones as well. Hinata instantly felt even sadder for Tsunade, knowing had to stay composed while she talked. It seemed to Hinata while she looked around at everyone gathered, Konoha was a broken mirror and Tsunade had to pick up the fragments and put them back together. Being careful not to get cut by them. Then it was time for a small presentation they put together of photos and sad touching music and projected it on the walls of the stadium. There were small quotes randomly put in made by each person. You knew which person belonged to which group cause a small cheer or increased crying came up from a certain groups of people. Then it was a picture for the first time of Nar. It was startling, but it was clearly him. A full head of blonde hair, blue eyes, smiling, whisker marks, stood in a small kiddie pool full of mud holding a frog. A frog sat on his head. His shirt was wet and dirty, and his shorts he wore totally trashed. But the most amazing thing was it was a picture of him when he was maybe 5 or 6. A huge wave of cheering came up from most ninja. Evansade made a giggle and clapped for him. Then it was a few other small memories. Then it was Naruto's turn again. Once more it was a young Nar, maybe 7 or 8. He stared at the camera in disbelief as one hand held a carrot away from him. The look on his face was like, what is it? And what do you think I am supposed to do with it? Then the quote popped up on the bottom. Why eat food when there is ramen? Uzuaki Nar. Next, there was a few team pictures of the other ninja. A few funny ones when they graduated, all wearing their headbands upside down and laughing. A few close-ups and more quotes. Then at the very end, it was a collage of all of them. Then the words scrolled up the screen. These are the names we shall never forget. Then one by one, they appeared and faded away. Then the song ends. And just before people start clapping, Sununade stepped up to the mic. The next part is a short video of one of these heroes. I found it while going through my office. I think all of you will enjoy it. Then the third's voice came on. Is this blasted thing working? Then the camera was focused several times. Then swung around to a view of the Hokage office. But then the chair swung around to see a little Nar, a tiny one. He couldn't have been 3 or 4. The third's voice rang again. Nar, say hello to the camera. Nar looked up at him and giggled. Then hid. No. In the sweetest, cutest voice you ever did hear. Well then, tell them how old you are. The third asked. Nar popped up. Who? The third sighed. The people who are going to watch this someday. Nar giggled then waved happily. Hello everybody's. Then ducked under the desk again. The third sighed. Nar back up here and tell me you age. Nar giggled then held up his arm. I am 4 years old WLD. He yelled. Note he kind of has a W sound in the middle of everything. The third laughed heartily. Yes. Yes. And do you know what that means? Nar popped up. I get W man. A loud sigh. Besides the ramen. Nar tilted his head. Then what? OWD man. The third muttered. Stop calling me that. I am the oh never mind. Naruto laughed and jumped into his chair. Okay now what are you doing? Naro laughed. Bine Okage. He dropped the H in Hokage. The third laughed again. You are a little small. Don't y'all think? Nar grinned. No, I am Okage. I nod little. More laughter escaped from the crowd. Then the third placed a hat on Naruto's head. It was the Hokage hat. It completely engulfed his head. Nar moved his head around. I see want see. He exclaimed, then lifted it. Okay, made. I not BW enough yet. The third sighed. You'll get there. Nar looked excited. Really? I go into be Okage. The third laughed. Yeah, one day if you train hard enough. Nurid got a devilish grin. Okay, then I will get Bewigger and Stunger. Then I be Okage. You remember that. Oud man. By this time, the entire stadium was in tears from laughter except for the solemn group of main branch Hyuga. Then Nar jumped down from the chair. Where are you going? Nar rolled his eyes to get one. Duh. The third sighed again. Nar grinned. Yes, we member. I have to get swanger. So, I need more W men by everyone's. Nar said directly to the camera. Wait, why are you saying goodbye? Nar grinned. Because when you say hello, you Havia say G would goodbye. This is my G would goodbye. The G would buy. Now I go get W. Then he held up a purse, a glint in his eyes. The third said, what the Nar give me my wallet back. Then Nar ran of screaming in laughter. The third put the camera down. Little rascal I'll get you. Then the third's figure passed by the camera and then you heard Naruto's voice yell, old man, you can't catch me. I may be future Okage. Believe it. Then the footage cut off. By the end of the footage, there was rolls of laughter. Even Hinata was laughing hard. Sununade went back to the podium. As you can see, I thought it would be good because funerals are not just to remember the ones that are gone, but to remember who they were when they were here. The service continued on normally from then on. They walked up and put a flower in a large pile meant for each person. Then they turned and left. It was usually the Hokage in relations only to those who had died. Friends and comrades must go later. It was a cruel and hard rule, but a rule they had to follow, so they each filed out and met up with each other outside. Sakura hugged Hinata. Where have you been? She asked. Hinata hugged her back and said, I am staying with Ka and his clan. Some and Hana treat me like family almost, and Fluffy is taken care of. I am already training him to be a good ninja dog. We learn fast, she said happily. Just then, they heard a loud voice say, out, training a ninja dog are we. I thought you were born Hyuga. Even if you don't deserve it, have the decency to make a name for us, even if you no longer have one. Hinata turned. It was her father. What do you want now? Hinata said, seeming to sigh in frustration. You are no longer Hyuga in name. But you still have the blood trait. You know full well what that means. You must have the seal placed on you. Hinata gasped and stepped back. No. She knew full well if she had that placed upon her, she would never have any freedom ever again. Fluffy stepped up. Fangs at the ready to defend. Here she glared at her. Hinata, why must you be like this? It is the rules. All Hyugas that are no longer members of the main house must wear the caged bird seal. Hinata glared and snapped. I am not going to follow those rules any longer. I am not Hyuga. Therefore, I am no longer in the rules. Hiroshi looked down at her. If you're not Hyuga, then what are you? You must have a name. Hinata smiled. I am Hinata. Just Hinata, not Hyuga. Or Inazaka, just Hinata. I don't need a surname. Hiroshi's face turned purple in anger. Then suddenly his eyes switched over. The others were grabbed by their parents or clan mates. Soon wanted to rip the hide of that no-good Hyuga, but she knew as well as every clan head knew. If they or a person from their clan laid a hand on him or interspersed with his work, they could pay very severely. Haga clan has always been a leading clan since the Uchiha had died away. Already you could see the circles of the sealing jutsu taking place in the area Hinata stood. She was frozen in place, unable to move. But that did not mean Fluffy could not. Nar looked down at the symbols on the seal. Already an ancient wisdom that had been passed down for generation from his mother's ancestors surfaced in his mind. He was an Uzumaki master of Fuonjutsu. They created the seals to seal away the nine-tailed fox. So he could easily see through the guise of this seal. Already his mind was creating, saving and storing away the information to undo the seal. Nar found this ability out only a short bit ago. Megumi must have somehow gave him the true Uzumaki blood trait. He never had it when he was a human, but now he did. It was interesting and helped him out greatly. Hiroshi was a fool for showing this to him, but then again, he was in the body of an animal. Hiroshi would not recognize him. Nar growled, daring Hiroshi to step forward and place the seal. Hiroshi smirked and moved. Overconfidence screamed from his posture. But Naruto, who had trained by a Hyuga's side for the past few days, was used to the fast movement of the Hyuga. Even that was nothing compared to what his father, the Yandami, could do with Flying Thunder God technique. Nar dodged the blow by jumping backwards and effectively pushing Hinata's paralyzed body out of the ceiling center. Hinata now free activated her Bakugan and went into a familiar posture without even saying the command. Fluffy was by her side in the correct position that they had trained and practiced for hours on end with Ka drilling them. Hiroshi was shocked beyond belief. Not only did the dog dodge his move, but was able to intercept Hinata from the seal. That said dog was growling like a wild wolf, low and menacing. His eyes were alive with anger, burning like amber in the deep blue coloring. Teeth fully bared, eerily shining white, glinting off the lights nearby. Hiroshi looked around. Every eye was watching him. They held their breath, their bodies taut with anticipation, wanting and dreading to see what he would do next. Then the animal turned its head to Hinata and eared as if asking for something. Hinata smirked and said, "Fluffy, sick em." With a confident sinus, the dog barked and leapt into action. He charged him head-on. Hiroshi rolled his eyes and started to go into a kitten, but before he could, the dog instead changed its course, looking as if to come in behind. Hiroshi was going to turn toward the mud, but Hinata intercepted him, matching each of his blows with dead-on accuracy. Her Bakugan eyes burned with retribution and defiance. They stayed like that in amidst a clashing Bakugan battle. But meanwhile, Fluffy was behind him, waiting and watching like the wolf in his nature does, stalking his prey. Nar eased up slowly. He knew Hinata would be able to defend herself. So all he had to do was wait. Right there it was. Hinata had quick like struck Hiroshi. Not a chakra node, but a regular body pressure point. Hiroshi was startled and backed up a step momentarily, forgetting to keep an eye out. Naruto took his moment. He leapt into the range of the Hyuga's one blind spot, angling his body so it stayed untraceable until it was too late. Hiroshi caught on, but it was already too late. Naruto dug his claws into Hiroshi's shoulder, effectively off, balancing the man. Hinata then proceeded to strike all of his body's chakra nodes. This time, a look of shock and triumph etched on her face. Naruto would always remember that proud look as Hinata finally broke free from him. Nar stayed on the defeated man's chest, his paws resting on Hiroshi's throat. Hinata looked down on him. She was slightly out of breath, but stated loudly, calmly, and with all the pride she had, Hinata said, "Father, you will never lay a hand on me ever again. If you do, I will let Fluffy kill you, and I will help him do it." To add to her threat, Naruto growled. Then Hinata called him off. "You gave me everything I wanted, but there is one thing I always wanted that I know you could never give me." She paused to let it sink in. "Freedom. You could never bear to let something go, can you? Greedy old man. Well, now I am taking it for myself, and this time you can't stop me." And with that, she turned on her heel and marched away. Hiroshi staggered up. He was about to yell something, but Nar turned and met his eyes. Nar did not growl nor bark. He just stared, his eyes piercing and strong, burning with an intense fire so intense and bright Hiroshi had to look away. He then looked back. The animal studied him for a few more seconds before. Like a slap to his face and an even greater sting to his pride, the dog bowed his head, then turned and ran after Hinata, leaving Hiroshi to stare at nothing. When all was done, there was a silence. Not a person said a word. It was heavy, but you could feel the air start to life and buzz with emotion with every step Hinata took. Finally, a person started to clap one by one until it was a roar. Every person there clapped and cheered Hinata. They went up to her and patted her on the back. Some even pet Fluffy. Then soon, Ka and Hana broke through the crowd. They ran up to her and hugged her. Even Ka, who then broke apart and smirked wildly, saying, "You did everything I taught you. You were amazing." Hinata reamed at the compliment but thanked Ka. "No, it was all Fluffy," she said, looking down at her wonder dog, but he was not there anymore. Before she could call out to him, she was swept away by the crowd. A lone figure watched Hinata get toted away. Naruto sat in the darkness of some nearby trees. He nodded. "Good, that will keep her busy for a bit. I have some business to take care of." He then trotted through the evening, headed towards the one place he has always been meaning to go ever since he found out about his parents, his father's home. Nar stalked the streets once more, hiding in the darkness. I am starting to feel like a rat with all this hiding in the darkness. But to save the village, I must stay low, he thought to himself. He made his way to a place few travel. It was the home of the fourth Hokage. Left as it was, only a few people took care of the grounds, and a person in Anbu went into the house to make sure the house stayed in top form, for it was a lasting memory of the fort's heroism. The house would have been Naruto's if had returned alive and claimed his birthright. But it was not so. So Naruto then decided to break into his house instead of claiming it. The only thing he cared about was what was in his father's private study. So Nar did just that. He eased in, making sure to disengage all alarm seals placed by the Ambu. Nar smirked and thanked his mother's heritage for giving him the ability to basically see through and disengage all these complicated seals. Naruto walked the halls of what should have been his childhood home if it wasn't for Moa. But he didn't mind. His apartment was just as good, and he had very good substitutes for his family. Plus, the fact of knowing his parents were technically with him all along soothed him as well. So, he continued on to the study. Once more, he looked for seals, broke through them, and entered the room. It once might have been a large room, but it was so filled with papers and scrolls piled high to the ceiling. Naruto Gate. So this is where my cluttering nature comes from as he weaved his way through the maze of paper mountains. Nar settled down and began to just read. Nar studied critically everything, locking it to memory. Few knew of this, but when Nar wanted to learn something, he used a small knack of ingeniousness to do it. Like Shikamaru, Nar was also a genius when he was motivated enough. And due to the fact that he had to measure up to a S-class criminal within the body of an animal really motivated some people to learn all they could. He flew over the information comprehending and memorizing it with dead-on accuracy. If he was human and did this, people would have freaked out if they saw him. Naruto studying this intently, Naruto even went through some scrolls that had many good wind-type jutsu. Nar also committed them to memory and thought of ways of enhancing them or making the usable to this form. Nar reached into a darker side of Fujutsu, the nasty stuff. Naro shivered but continued on. If he knew he would ever battle Sasaki in the future, he would have to somehow be able to get around the Susanoo. Then an idea came to his head. If they could seal away an entity like the Nine Tails, was it possible to seal something out? The Hyuga clan had stumbled upon it without even knowing it. They were in a context sealing a person's chakra nodes close for a matter of time. So was it possible to seal something a person has, let's say a jutsu or ability, indefinably? Well, the Hyuga clan also solved that as well. The Hyuga clan can on a will seal a person's ability away. Nar smirked. It could be possible to seal Sasaki Susanoo out of him so that he could never reach it, but it might require a price, something in return, like the person's soul. Like when you do the sealing of a nine-tailed beast inside your newborn son, Nar though harder, accessing an ancient wisdom. Then it came to him. When a person gives something up like their soul, they actually do it so they can save time and make up for the lack of something they don't have. Then Naruto thought even harder. Jiraiya and Orochimaru both stumbled onto something, but never investigated further. The use of the 5 elements. If one had the use of 5 elements, if only for a small amount of time, that person would then be whole and thus be able to do many things considered impossible without sacrificing themselves. So if Naruto was able to concentrate all 5 elements, he would be able to seal of the Susanoo. His heart leapt at the thought. Now it would take a lot of elemental chakra and a lot of time he would have to get it right. So, if he had 5 clones, each using the different chakra natures, then go through the different signs he already had in his head. Crap. He would have to write this plan down before he forgot it. Nar found an empty scroll, got some ink, then quickly solved out how to write by using the only bushy thing he had, his tail. Nar dipped the tip in the ink and began to write, his tail flying over the page, each intricate pattern of each kanji perfect, as he wrote down the instruction and the actual jutsu. He then when finished with the final draft, which took half the night to make, Yufuko Miya Tataki no Kamioa, which translated over to Forbidden Sealing Art, Raging God of Battle, because the Susanoo was just that, a raging god of battle, one that grew stronger with hate. Sometimes, unless Naruto was able to seal off the necessary chakra to summon it, the Susanoo only works when a certain amount of chakra is left and feeds off of it. Also, it only works as long as Sasaki can see. Naruto noticed this when Sasuke was battling Kakashi. Naruto sighed knowing he should get back to Hinata, but he looked at all the beautiful scrolls and papers lying there ready to be read, holding wisdom that could make him even stronger. Nar shook his head. Since when did I become so interested in learning? Nar smirked. It was ironic. In a way, he really was dead. He barely recognized himself anymore. Instead of loud and bright, he stayed quiet and dark, waiting from shadows. Instead of goofing off and having fun, he was staying reserved and training and studying to the extent of breaking into past Hokage houses to learn what was in them. Nar started to put everything away. But this was what he had to do. When this dark cloud that only he could see was past, then he would be able to come back as his old self. But right now, his village needed him. Sununade needed him, and more importantly, his friends needed him. Nar then went back outside to find Hinata. He followed the scent until he spotted her with many others standing in front of the hero's stone. Nar went up to her and wed. She looked down. There you are, Fluffy. Off visiting you female friends, I bet are getting in trouble. Anyway, I am glad you came back. This is the hero's stone. They just added all the names to it. Naruto sighed. It was very embarrassing having to be talked to like this, but he would have to hold out until the time came. And if right on cue, he caught the scent of a very familiar person. One that sent his blood to go cold with a strong hatred towards that person. He turned. It was Sasaki. He held himself back from jumping on him at that moment, but he did growl just a little. Hinata looked down at him. Fluffy, it's just Sasaki. I know you haven't met him, but you usually take so good to new people. Come on now, calm down. Naruto did, but he kept staring at his own name forever etched in that cold stone. As Sasaki weaved more lies of how sorry he was and blah blah blah. It sickened Naruto to no end how they all nodded and seemed to share his loss and accept him. Nar kept his rage deep within him, controlling it so he could use it in a precise manner. He slipped deep into his unconscious and just thought about what to do, what to train, how to train, and did come up with more stuff. And by that time, Sasaki was gone and Hinata was calling him to leave. Naruto was about to leave when he saw Kakashi. He was saddened, and he had taken of his hit. Thank you, Blood Kitsen 11, and was looking at it. Sadly, no one else noticed it. Naruto's sharp ears picked up his mumble of, I shouldn't be a ninja. I have led to many die. Then he dropped his hit. I ate. Naruto went over to it. It laid in the mud. Kakashi started to walk away. Naruto barked. Kakashi turned. Naruto picked it up and carried it to him. Kakashi looked surprised. Naruto sent it gently on his foot and sat down looking into Kakashi's eye. Kakashi looked down at this strange yet strong animal and looked into its eyes. As it sat down, he could not name it, but it was as if the dog spoke to him through those eyes. It seemed to say, do not give up. As if it wanted him to keep going. Kakashi was feeling as though he was wrestling himself. Naruto had always kept going and he wanted to believe in Naruto, but now he was dead like so many of his other comrades. Ren, Obito, Asuma, Jiraiya, Inosuke, Sensei, and now even Naruto, so many. He thought to himself, had always believed in going on and keep moving. Yet they had died and he lived. In fact, he even came back once from death during the battle between the pens. Should he give it another chance to put on that symbol that had went through so much, that had been splattered with so many tears and drenched in so much blood, the very hit that his sensei, the fourth Hokage, gave him? Should he put it on and keep moving? What was the point? He has lost almost everyone he had ever held dear to him. Then Sakura, who had noticed Kakashi and Fluffy walked over to them, saw what was happening. She sighed softly, then just as softly said, Kakashi, you're not giving up, are you? Look, I know you lost a lot of people, but you have to remember that you meet new people as well if you stopped being a ninja who would be my sensei. You are the only person I would have left. Plus, think Kakashi. Take your own words of advice. Those who break the rules are considered scum. But those who forget about their comrades are even worse than scum. Kakashi gazed at her thoughtfully. He looked back at all the years. All the friends he had lost, even the newest casually was there. Naruto smiling proudly at him standing next to Obito, Jiraiya, Asuma, and his sensei, the fourth Hokage. Kakashi nodded as he smiled thoughtfully beneath his mask. Sakura was right. No matter how much pain there is, sometimes just keep moving on is the only thing you can do, because even though you are lost in a dark cave, if you keep moving your hands following along the walls and guiding your small steps, odds are you will find the light. Kakashi looked down at his Hitai 8. He picked it up and put it back on, then rested a hand on Fluffy's head. Thank you, Fluffy. He said and turned to Sakura and nodded, bringing her into a brief hug before nodding to her and poofing away in a cloud of smoke. Sakura looked at Fluffy, who looked at her. She sighed and walked over to the stone and rested a hand on Naruto's newly engraved name. We need you now more than ever, Nar. Nar sighed and said inwardly, you don't know the half of it. Nar and Hinata continued to train, getting stronger each day, while Nar snuck to his father's study each night to read and study. He also practiced his jutsu to seal the Sauno and many more. Adding a few more jutsu to his list, both water and wind type. By the time Nar felt he was back up to his usual level, a month had swiftly went by. Nar now knew he had to keep tabs on Sasaki from now on. And just as he had thought, everyone was back to trusting and pitting the Uchiha. Nar kept his emotions in, saving them for that day. Until then, he practiced more of his speech, sometimes to see how good he was. He hid in bushes and called out to people. It seems he was getting excellent. One day, he even had a very long nice chat with a blind man in the park. Despite all this, Naruto still felt he was inadequate. He had to somehow test himself. Practicing with dummies brought you only so far. Hinata had not been on any missions that required him. He was always left at the compound with the other dogs. Nar decided one day to go out and see if he could track down Sasaki. So Naruto did so, and fate was on his side because Sasaki looked very suspicious today. Nar followed at a distance. Every often or so the Uchiha would turn to glance over his shoulder. Then he slithered into the alleyway of two buildings and followed it until it led to a dead-end wall. Or was it? Sasaki paused momentarily, then slipped through the wall. It rippled slightly like a pool of water and then steadied. Naruto waited a few moments before following him through. Naruto entered in. It was a small room that led to some steps. Naruto followed the waving dark steps down a ways before he heard voices. Sasaki, you are here. Sasaki answered, yes, my lord. Nar settled down and began to listen in. Most of what they said was uninteresting. They talked of civil matters, what people they had, what people had said from other towns, what information spies had brought in. Then finally, Danzo said, Tsunade has been said to indulge in her sake even more due to her stress and grief. This is a perfect time to try our first plot. The sound of a drawer opening was heard. Then this contains a poison, odorless, tasteless, and has no apparent effects until the user tries to use his or her chakra. Then the person will go into a very violent seizure and have a massive attack on the nerve endings, effectively stopping the heart. Nar was shocked by this. There was a silence. Then Sasaki then said, so into her private sake stash where no one has tested for poison. Danzo chuckled. Not a complete fool are we. Yes, that's exactly what I want you to do. In fact, you can do it today. I have a letter made for her to come interrogate suspicious traitors immediately. Go and give this to her. She will leave. Shizune will follow after her, leaving you to find the stash in her office. Come back when you have delivered both messages. Nar growled lowly. How dare he be so coy? Thinking he had Tsunade figured out to a key. But when Nar thought about it, that was exactly what Tsunade did. She just bolted out of her office and Shizune was left chasing after her. Neither one cared if someone was left standing awkwardly in her office. The sound of two chairs scooting on the floor made Nar scuttle as fast as he could out of the building. He quickly then immersed himself in digging in a trash can when Sasaki came out. The raven looked at him and laughed. Wow, Hinata, he really is a proud and noble beast digging in the garbage for moldy food. Then he stopped away. Joke's on you, thought Nar, you didn't even notice that this trash has no food in it. 10. Nar jumped out and trailed after Sasaki once more. Danzo was surprisingly right. Once Tsunade read the letter, she ran out of the office and Shizune ran after her, completely ignoring and forgetting about Sasaki. Sasaki then began to scope out for her stash. Naruto watched all of this from behind a secret wall Jiraiya had showed him with a peephole. Saharia could check up on Sasaki, found the stash quickly. It was hidden beneath the rug in a secret compartment in the floor. He opened it and poured the contents of the packet into each sake bottle. Nar waited until Sasaki was gone, then jumped out and began to collect the stash. He kept an ear to listen for Tsunade coming back. He picked up each bottle gingerly, then carried them to a blank scroll and sealed them away. He tucked the scroll into his hid 8, then quickly ran downstairs to the kitchen where he knew they had sake. He brought back the right number of bottles and placed them in the secret compartment, then shut the small door and flipped back the rug. Nar then got out as fast as he could and ran to his father's study. He put the scroll down, grabbed a bigger scroll, and sealed that scroll into the bigger scroll. He then marked the big scroll as evidence. Nar then ran back to the compound before he was missed. Naruto was lying comfortably on his side when Ka and Hinata came in laughing. Man, that movie was hilarious. Heya exclaimed. Hinata grinned widely. Yeah, I agree. Hinata came into the room. Fluffy, how are you, boy? Hey, guess what? In a few days, I am going on an actual mission outside of the city. Want to come along? Nar barked happily, tail wagging. Hinata laughed and leaned down to pet him. Good boy. Then they heard a knock on the door. Ka answered it. It was Shikamaru, Ino, Sakura, and Lee. Hinata gasped and leapt for joy. I can't believe it. We can finally meet for the first time without missions or wars getting in the way. Sakura giggled. You are getting just as loud as the Inazaka's Hinata. I remember a time you could barely speak. Hinata laughed. Yeah, I know. Naruto walked over. Hey, Fluffy, who's a big strong dog? Yes, you are. Ino said, petting him and making him roll over to scratch his tummy, which Naruto actually liked. Hinata laughed. He is so pampered. I spoil him. Ka laughed. Yes, yes you do. Hinata elbowed him in the ribs. Quiet. It's not like you don't pamper Akamaru. Ka sighed. But he's just a puppy still. Everyone broke into laughter once again. Maybe to you, said Shikamaru. Just then, some walked in. Ah, and kid, she exclaimed happily. Good. Just the guy the first needed. Listen, I need you to think of some other ways to test the dog's intelligence. Shikamaru looked at her. Huh. Some sighed. Fluffy. He's aced all of my intelligence tests. I need more tricky ones. Shikamaru looked at the dog. Sure, let me think about it. Then Shikamaru bent down and resumed his normal position when concentrating. After a few moments of awkward silence, he opened his eyes, then looked to Fluffy. Fluffy, I want you to go get a shogi board. Before anyone could interject, saying that a dog couldn't possibly know what that is, Naruto had left and dragged one back. Shikamaru smirked. Well, we have one mystery solved. The one to why he is so smart. He understands human language. They gasped, except soon. Yaso does Kuromaru and most dogs. But Shikamaru shook his head. No, you see, I didn't show him what I wanted before asking him. I told him in plain tongue as if I was asking one of you. Kuromaru could probably do that as well. But Akamaru, Shikamaru said, glancing at the said dog that was chasing his own tail. Sun gave a shrill whistle. Kuromaru walked in. She looked to him. Kuromaru, you can talk to Fluffy in dog tongue, right? Kuromaru nodded. Well, ask him what he can and can't do. Kuromaru nodded, then turned to Fluffy. They started to give small barks and whimpers as they spoke to each other. Say I can't talk. Nar said why? Kurumaru asked. Nar growled. Because they can't know a thing. Not yet. Do you want Konoha destroyed? Kurumaru sighed. Fine, but excuses needed. Naru thought for a moment. My vocal cords aren't right. Kuromaru shrugged. It was worth a shot. Kuromaru turned back to them. Voice of his. Unable to speak to you. Some nodded. See, Shikamaru Kuromaru is not as dumb as you say him to be. Shikamaru glanced at the dog. I never said he was dumb. I was just saying if I told him to get something he never heard of before, he would not be able to get it. Hinata looked at Shikamaru. What do you mean? Shikamaru sighed. Well, Hinata, you found him in the wild. How many wild dogs do you know that can understand what you say and know what a shogi board is when I know none of you play it? Let alone tell your dogs what it is. Ka looked at Fluffy. He does have a point. Hey, Kuromaru, can you ask him where he was before he came here? Kuromaru looked at him. Well, what a story. Naruto sighed. My father was a wolf and got shot when I was just a pup, and my only other brother died during the winter. My mom raised me and we stayed together until she got trapped and killed for her fur. I wandered lost for a while until an old man took me in and nursed me to health. He always played shogi by himself and told me about it, talking to me as if I was human. But then some bad men came and attacked us. I tried to fight but couldn't. The man died and I ran. I then fell into a river and met Hinata. The reason why I protect her is to make sure none of those who treat me nicely will ever get hurt when I am around. Kurumaru turned and told them what Naruto had said. Interesting, Shikamaru said, scratching his chin. Oh, Fluffy, that is so sad. She then reached down and hugged him tightly. But you are a sweet and kind dog, and don't worry, nothing like that will never happen. Naruto sighed, but let her hug him. Shikamaru then sat at the board. The old man ever teach you to play? Naruto barked and walked over and sat by it. Kurumaru then said, yes, old man taught Fluffy all of his tricks. You won't defeat me, pup. Fluffy says. Shikamaru smirked. Pup am I. Then the game commenced. Shikamaru stared. Mouth agape. He was absolutely flabbergasted. He could think of nothing. He was speechless. He couldn't believe what had just happened. Never. And he meant never. Has anyone ever bested him like this dog did? The dog just sat there staring intently while the girls kept back giggles and the guys stifled laughter. Then Ka could not contain it. You just got beat by a walking furball. Papamaru. Ka said, making fun of what Fluffy had called Shikamaru. Everyone had a good laugh as Shikamaru crossed his arms and said, this is so troublesome. Nar nodded to Shikamaru, then left. He waited until late night before he got up again and went to train once more. Nar sighed as he walked to the training grounds. I really should stop calling so much attention to myself. It could blow my cover, he said quietly to himself. Nar looked up at the moon. Someday I will be able to talk freely and laugh once more, he thought to himself and continued on into the night. So guys, what do you think about this Naruto story? Tell me your opinion in the comments. And if you want more Naruto what if stories, make sure to subscribe to Universe of Naruto. Thanks for watching.